Evening.
No, it gets renewed.
Seeing as it's 7:30, I'd like to call the September 20th,
Well, you must have started
2018
in service
meeting
then.
of the Finance Committee to order.
That turns it off.
Tonight will be broadcast by Chelmsford Telemedia and recorded for future viewing. If anyone else in the audience is recording, please let us know now. Seeing none, we'll be following the posted and published agenda. The first item on the agenda tonight is the approval of minutes. We have two sets to approve tonight. September 6th and September 12th.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of September 6th and September 12th as presented.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving right along. We have a presentation on and discussion of Warrant Article 7, the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. With us tonight, we have the Executive Director of the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, Susan Julian Gates, and also the Chair of the Board, Donald Van Dyne. That works.
Susan? I guess we could use.
Yeah, so Susan's getting set up. Again, my name is Donald Van Dyne. I do serve as the chair of the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, and this is Susan Julian Gates. She has broad shoulders because she holds the CCA together. And you will see that in the 14 slides that we're going to make in this presentation to you tonight. First, we're going to start about what is the CCA and what do we do, all right? And basically, you know, if you've been to the CCA, we are a visual and performing arts center. But as Mr. Diggs, from the Board of Selectmen, has pointed out, we are much more than that. We are economic development driver, all right? We have oftentimes been referred to as the anchor of the center village, all right? And then Susan's going to talk about who do we serve. She's going to talk about the performers, the number of performances that we have throughout the year. She's going to talk about the audience, the community in Chelmsford that we serve, not only from the kids, but all the way up to the seniors. So we address everyone in Chelmsford, and then we're going to talk about the budget request. And that budget request is going to go over our budget. And keep in mind, and you probably already know this, and the community at large knows this, but since we reopened in 2009, we have self-funded all our operating expenses, okay? So any receipts, any money that we bring in from ticket sales or from performances, we use that to pay for our expenses. So our request this evening is for $30,000, all right? We're hoping at the end there will be some questions and we're here to make any answers. And we hope as you move forward, you will strongly support and endorse and make a recommendation at town meeting for the $30,000. And with that, I will turn it over to Susan, and she will walk us through the 14 slides.
Thank you very much for hearing us today. I realize what hard work you do and that you have lots of other people to listen to about the budget, so let's get right through this, right? The Chelmsford Center for the Arts, our mission statement is to bring visual and performing arts to Chelmsford and surrounding towns by providing a venue for active engagement as a participant or audience member. What that really means is we have a two-pronged mission. One is to provide a space for community members to practice their art. So that could be as a musician with the Chelmsford Community Band, concert band, which performs for free all summer on the Common and rehearses at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, or with the Chelmsford Jazz Ensemble, which likewise does the same. The Chelmsford Art Society is going to be celebrating their 50th year soon, but they just celebrated their 50th year of presenting the beloved 4th of July art show that we all know. They spend a week preparing that and setting it up in the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. We don't charge them for that. It's open for free to the public. So there are members of the community who like to practice their art. We have Applause Academy, which is a children's music theater organization that has been spectacularly successful. We have had hundreds of children go through the program, ages 8 to 14. I have had the great pleasure of seeing children come on the first day, not knowing anyone, an 8-year-old, and by the end of the week, during the summer camp that they have, being able to do a fully produced singing, dancing, memorized singing, dancing, music theater production. And these children I've watched go through this program over these last, I think, 6 years they've been with us, and see them graduate into high school, and they are the kids that are winning all of those awards that we're so proud of at the high school. Not only do we allow people to come from the community to practice their art, we also provide world-class performances at an affordable cost for members of our community. And this rack card that's here is a list of what's going on at the CCA through December. There may be a few things that'll be added in the meantime, but as of the time that we printed this a few weeks ago, you can see we have jazz, we have gallery openings, we had theater on Friday night. Our opening weekend was a one-man show by a young man who graduated from Chelmsford High School in, I think, 2006. Then on Saturday, we had a jazz group that had 8 musicians. And on Sunday, we had the Thoreau Piano Trio, which is truly a world-class classical group. And they've been performing at the CCA actually to help us. They've done this out of the kindness of their hearts, and they have actually gone into the McCarthy Middle School and done programs with the children there with Allie Lacasse they did not charge anything. They did it because they wanted to help us and they wanted to support the community. We have big band concerts. I won't go through everything here. You've got it. People can pick these up at the town offices. We have some at the library. They're around town. Or come to the CCA and pick one up because you should come visit us. So as part of that outreach to the community and the economic development portion, it's not just getting people from other communities to come here. It also is, Donald said, the anchor of the center, but I've also read that we're the jewel in the center of Chelmsford. And I'll accept that. When businesses are looking for a place to locate, they look to see what kinds of amenities and things are in a community that will interest their employees. And having this kind of a place is helpful for them, and it makes us attractive to them. All right, do you have the clicker there?
I do.
Oh, there. Well, what are we? We have everything. We have music, we have theater, we have art, we have dance, we have writers groups. We have, if you name it, you can think of it. If you come to me and talk to me about it, I will find a way to make it happen for you, for your group. We really believe in outreach and trying to get the community involved and enjoy their artistic abilities and find them. So who makes up, we'll call it the CCA Tri? Who comes here? Well, it turns out that it's over 500,000 people in the greater Merrimack Valley are in our audience region. And we know that they come here because we know we've sold tickets to people from Nashua, from Burlington, from Andover, from Lexington Concord, from Acton, and everything in between. We don't necessarily have the funds yet to reach all of these people, but we know that by word of mouth, they have found us. And I have actually had people contact me from overseas because they've heard about our piano and our concert hall. So, by the way, I want to mention this. At the selectmen's meeting, I heard some chatter in the background where somebody was talking about the Steinway concert grant, the Steinway B. The town facilitated the purchase in getting the loan, signing the loan. But when Paul signed and the Board of Selectmen, everybody signed, they looked at me and said, but you have to pay for it. And we did. In 60 months, we paid off the $60,000 loan, and we had put down a down payment of around $25,000. So we fully paid that off. The town had nothing to do with any of the financial part of that. So what did we do in 2018? We actually had 68 performances that were paid events. That's more than one a weekend. And that's all done by pretty much, well, it's all volunteers. And once in a while, I have somebody I can pay to help out with lights and sound, but not often. So you can see the array of, the range of things that we have, everything from film to world music, classical, pop, rock, big band. Again, if there's something you don't see, come and talk to me. If there's a musician that you'd really like to hear, come and talk to me. That's how I meet new people and I, find them to perform at the CCA. So we have 2 performance spaces. We have the auditorium, which seats 200 in concert hall seating, and we also have the Cabaret Cafe, which is a club setting that seats 50 at cafe tables. We have 4 studios with 3 artists in residence. These people all pay rent to have their studio space there, but not only do they pay rent, they also help with lots of the design work that we need to have done, and they've been doing that for a while. Chelmsford Telemedia, the organization that's broadcasting this now, they have an edit suite in one of the offices, and people come to edit their videos. We do on average about 5 curated gallery exhibits in our gallery, which is also a gift shop and the box office. We know how to make a space work. And right now, there is a gorgeous show by the Colored Pencil Society of America, the New England chapter. Everybody should come and see it. The gallery is open from 1 to 4 on Sundays, and also whenever we have something going on in the auditorium, because it's the box office also. And also if you call and you come by, anybody who comes by my office and says, I'd like to see what's in the gallery, I'm very happy to unlock the door and show you around. So what's interesting about the CCA is its location is location, location, location. We are at the crossroads of every single road that leads to any place in the Merrimack Valley and kind of beyond, which is good for economic development. I mean, we're in a good place, and we've done the research. There is no other organization that provides what we provide in our audience region. We are similar to the Center for the Arts in Natick, to Amazing Things in Framingham, Firehouse Center for the Arts in Newburyport, and the Hopkinton Center for the Arts in Hopkinton. We all have about the same seating capacity. We all have galleries. We do similar things. We bring in similar kinds of performers, but we don't cross audience regions. We've researched, we've looked at who they say their audience is. It doesn't cross ours. And going back to that 500,000, 500,000 people in our audience region, they have roughly 140 to 180,000 people in their regions. We are primed to be able to fill our house if we have the funds to do marketing and other things if we need the tools. So you all are number people and you'd like to look and see. You can see our income and expenses, that this is what we've been running on volunteers. We spend our money on everything from cleaning to office supplies to ink. We do all our own printing, except for large signs. We do our own flyers, and that was actually, it's thanks to Kit Harbison. She acquired a print quality IBM machine for us that it does beautiful work, but it has very expensive ink. But we pay for all of that. We do our own work, our own design. You'll see there's a place here where it looks like our expenses were more than our income. That's a little glitch. I asked if that could have an asterisk next to it because we had the money, but I did not understand that when you make the deposits, I thought you just had to get all the money in by the end of the year. Oops, no, you have to get it in by 8 a.m. on the last day so that it can be deposited in the bank. So we really have been in the black every year. So we've never used any town funds for anything any of our operational expenses. So the next slide is operational needs to show if I disappeared for whatever reason, as Glenn Diggs said to me, everyone has to move on at some time. I think that was a nice way to say I might, I could no longer be with all of you, right? I'm a full-time volunteer. At this point, what I've done is the equivalent of about $1 million in just salary. And I'm not asking to be paid, but I think it's much better to be upfront with financial people to say, this is the true cost of doing this. Because otherwise it looks like if you come back later, they say, but you didn't tell us that. So our operational needs in reality are paying somebody to replace me at some point, not now. We need a technical director to run lights and sound. There are times when I have gone up, done the sound check, run the lights, checked the lights, gone down, sold the tickets, handed out the programs, ran back upstairs, run the show. I could do that when it was one show a month when we first started, but now that we're fully booked, that's impossible. And we had people who would do it on an ad hoc basis, but they all needed to go get real paying jobs, and they have not been available. You might ask, well, why don't you just contract this out? People who are technical directors who run lights and sound, their day rate is $500 to $800 a day or even more. So this last weekend, if I had contracted out with someone who does this, it would have been a $1,500 weekend, which that's not feasible to do that. Eventually, I would love to see a membership box office administrator type person, because we can't just give the keys to the building and all of our cash and our cash register and everything to random volunteers. We are now a fully volunteer professional. I don't know if you can call something that, but we are a professional organization that's running a major business. And volunteers and interns are great, but they have to be highly supervised, which means I can never leave. Our electricity is $20,000 plus a year, and we don't have marketing funds per se because we don't have a real budget. We start every year with whatever we had left over at the end of the year and then go forward. And as far as marketing is concerned, I think there are a lot of people who don't understand the costs of doing certain things. So the next slide shows what it costs to do 2 signs a month for the design, the production. We run newspaper ads which have brought in people in the Lowell Sun's What Do You Want to Do entertainment magazine, but we don't do those as often as we'd like because we just don't have the money to do it. The rack card, Donna Berger does all of our design gratis. She does it because she loves the CCA, and in reality, I personally pay for most of these. But this is our only way of getting the word out about what's happening in our community. This rack card is it. There are postcards for gallery shows and printing of postcards, and I've run some Facebook ads, and that money also comes out of my pocket. So that just gives you some idea with no postage, no direct mail, no major marketing. You can see it adds up to $21,600 a year for us to ramp up even marginally. So why are we here tonight? We would love to have more funding. While I was away, I heard that $30,000 was proposed, so even though you've seen all those other numbers, if you look at the last slide, what I'm really looking for is a minimal request so that I can keep, personally, so that I can keep going, is to have a technical director to do help running all the shows so that we can continue. And in the other materials, there's a job description for what a technical director does and would be expected to do. You can see it was written in May 2017 originally, so I was hopeful back then, but here we are. You have to be patient sometimes. There are also 2 letters, just as an example of the community support. There's a letter from Fred Barzik, who lives in town. He's lived here for several decades, and he was a producer and director at WGBH, and he supports what we're doing. And I also have a letter from Hal Mayforth, who's new to the community, but he is a professional artist. He's a actually very well-known illustrator and painter. You've seen, if you saw his work, you'd recognize it, even if you didn't know his name. He's regularly in the New York Times, Time Magazine, things like that. Finally, because these were expensive, sorry I didn't, and we only have a few of them, I'm leaving one with the chair, but we have tried to do things to raise money and to show people, what we do. We can pass these around if you'd like to look at it. And so that's about it. I guess Donald and I can answer questions.
Yeah, well, before we get to Q&A, I just simply want to recognize a couple people in the audience. Kit Harbison, who's been with the CCA, a long-term member of the board, and then Chris Borden in the back, who is there always to support the CCA.
He was with us the last 2 weeks.
Sorry?
He was with us the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. And in addition, unfortunately, we did. We have 300 other people with us here tonight. They're in the bag.
Yeah. I'm not leaving these with you, but I just want to show you. Donna designed this card, I support funding for the CCA, that people could mail back or drop off. And this is what we have so far about 2 weeks? Yeah. In 2 weeks. And we asked people to, write things. Here somebody said, a community without art is a community without culture. The CCA really enriches the cultural fabric of community and the surrounding towns. Art is important education for all. Some are just wonderful programs. You can see that we have support. The Chelmsford board needs a dedicated rehearsal space, as well as an alternate performance space during the summer concert season, and that's what we provide to them. There you go. So
let's open up the Q&A for any questions.
I have one. So if you chose to use your $30,000 for a technical director, would that person be an employee of the town, or would that person be an employee of the Chelmsford for the Arts as a separate entity? And I ask that because of the benefits.
Right.
I see there's only 20 hours, but still.
Right. Well, the reality is, everybody thinks we're some separate nonprofit. I have the letter from IRS directed to me, care of the town treasurer back there. We are a governmental entity. I'm appointed by the town manager, he's appointed by the town manager, she's appointed by the town manager. It's like I run the library without being paid and with no staff. We are the town of Chelmsford. So yes, that person would be they would have to be a town employee, and that's the way it is.
So I guess I'm going to piggyback on your question, Kathy, and I'm sorry for stealing your
You
follow-up. So the ask right now is for $30,000, and the ask is a one-time take from the free cash that's available. So if you were hiring a technical director that's working, that's the earmark for the funds, I believe, is what you're saying.
That potentially could be the year.
Potentially, okay, but that's sort of what we're looking at right now. It's a one-time payment, so my concern is not only the fact that there'd be additional benefits that may be available to that person as a town employee, but also there's no set up continuing structure for funding next year. So my concern is going forward. How would that? Are we going to see you guys again next year? Or is it going to be a different article put forth by the CCA as a citizen petition? I'm just trying to I'm trying to capture
The
what's.
sustainability.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sure. My goal is not to have to come back to FinCom. All right, that's my goal. I believe through, we have created subcommittees for development and subcommittees through marketing. So however this $30,000 is spent, you see there's definitely a need for the $30,000, either through personnel and or through marketing. Either way, there's going to be a return on that investment, roll through our development and through our marketing. So I want to be reasonably optimistic going forward that we won't have to come back here. But we have to keep the door open a little bit, because
Do you
we.
feel, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
You feel you can hire somebody if you get that money for that amount?
We know we can hire somebody for that amount,
So you're,
because it's not a full-time person. It's not a full-time person, so.
It's 20
we-
hours a week.
We know we can hire somebody, and I think the least, what Susan has flushed out is that $32,000 would cover the benefits.
well, they wouldn't be
Yes,
a
I-
town employee if it was,
No, they would
Yes.
be.
No,
So
they-
if
Yes,
they're
they
20, if
would.
they're
They
20
would
hours,
be.
well, actually, no, I think if they're 20 hours or less. If I understand from Paul, if they're under 20 hours, there would not be a town employee getting benefits. I
Yeah, oh,
believe.
that's not what he told me,
Oh,
so
really?
maybe we had a,
Yeah,
I guess, Donald's the chairman of the board,
Mm.
he runs, tries to marshal all the forces. I'm telling you from my perspective, as somebody who's donated $900,000 worth, so far, of my time, and probably $30,000 to $40,000 of my cash towards this, and trying to bring it for the community, that I and all these other people that sign these things think that this is an important enough organization that it deserves to have town support in some way. Now, it's lovely. If money can be raised to accommodate all of these operational needs, that is fabulous. But in reality, I personally cannot keep running this at the level that it's been. I don't know how many of you have been to any of the performances there or come to see what we do, but it can't be sustained without having an employee right now. We've got to have a technical director to do this. And going forward, like I said, if I disappear, this is the real cost of running this.
So I guess that brings me to two more questions.
Sure.
And I know you have a rehearsal, so I'm
Yeah.
going to try to be brief. The first question is, how are the other towns, these other entities structured? Is there a totally volunteerism, or is there some sort of payment
There
structure?
are actually two ways, or maybe even three. So I didn't mention Lexington.
Mhm.
Lexington has Cary Hall, and it was a gift by the Cary family in 1920 or something, I don't know, a long time ago. And it's used, I believe, through the town manager's office, or something like that. They book the use of space for the community things. And there is a private organization, actually, there's somebody here who might know. John, do you know, does a private group
Yes,
run?
it's called Spectacle Management, and Peter Lally runs Cary Hall, which is I want to say probably an 800-seat venue.
Right, that's
And yeah,
correct.
they outsource the management of Cary Hall.
Right, so that means, though, that it's not the town of Lexington City, what I don't know, the city, Lexington's a city or a town, they don't have that community sort of support, whatever, it's just farmed out, it's leased to Spectacle, and Spectacle brings in fabulous groups, from all over the world there, but it is an 800-seat theater. So there's a management, and then town books it for the things that would be like rehearsals and all that kind of stuff. I don't think they have a gallery. The other organizations are nonprofits. They are separate, they own their own buildings, although I think Amazing Things actually leases from Framingham, but they are not part of the city. They are separate nonprofit organizations. And I guess the other place is the Westford PCA is totally volunteer.
It's lovely, but it's much smaller.
Oh, right,
Much
exactly.
It's tiny.
They're our
bigger.
sister, though, and
Yeah.
they've really encouraged us, so I can't
lovely.
leave
I've
them
been
out.
there before.
I mean,
It's
they're
lovely, but
at,
it's
they're,
tiny.
but that's the range. There's, and I could give you later offline, I've looked at the budgets for everybody. That's how I know how much the person who
Mhm.
does what I do gets paid. And they have staffs where the staff costs are between $98,000 and $150,000. So.
So my second question is, you mentioned bringing this online with marketing and/or with employee at the technical director position. You said you can't keep going with this and the costs and the additional performances. Is there a thought that by introducing these funds and having a technical director or increasing marketing that you will be able to become a little more sustainable?
Yes, that is how I look at it. I mean, it would be great if I had even the other person, which I realize that's not on the table, but I'm explaining that to you, that then we would have the ability to deal with the membership and the marketing is the big thing. If you don't know about what we're doing, I could have the greatest thing in the world, but it would be for naught.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that maybe putting the money towards marketing before a technical director?
No, because I will die.
What about, what I'm saying, I'm just trying to find a way that you
Because,
can.
yeah, my concern is that if the money goes to technical director, it becomes a one-time position, there's no funds later, because, I mean,
'Cause they're
free
not-
cash has shrunk every year the last couple of years. That's my principal concern right now.
My concern is that I mean, I think I love the CCA, and I think what you do is amazing, and I have no idea how you
Thank
do
you.
it volunteer-wise. But my concern is that the hope is to increase public knowledge so that you can get more people to buy tickets, so that you can increase your revenue and do more shows, et cetera,
And-
correct?
Right.
So in order to do that, there needs to be marketing. But in order to sustain it, you need a technical director. So is there a way to get both out of $30,000?
No, well, yes, no, it would come out of the $30,000. Donald can
Okay.
speak to the marketing committee that's just been created in the
Okay.
board.
Good?
If I could just,
You come
If
up.
you don't
Why not?
mind coming up and just telling the audience at home who you are.
My name is Kit Harbison. I've lived in town for 3-4 years. Oh, Jenna's gonna-
Time flies when you're having fun. Yeah.
I started the CCA with these guys, and I also started friends of an organization called CCA Partners, and it's a registered 501c3. And as far as marketing goes, because we're 501c3, we could get private foundation money, which the town cannot apply for.
Correct.
Because it's a governmental organization. It's a lot easier to get capacity building money for marketing and those kinds of things with a grant than it is to get personnel.
Mhm.
Primarily because what you're saying, grantors want to see that the money that they're giving is going to have a quantitative return.
Okay.
Um,
So what you're saying is there's a dual effort going on now.
Oh, absolutely.
So that there'll be a 501c3 in place that'll help introduce a little bit more of the marketing, be able to fund the marketing, while you have a technical director working on the other end. That makes me feel a little better.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah, and, I mean, I have a master's in arts administration from BU with a specialty in development. So,
You're the right lady for the job.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we
So as
think
far
so
as
too.
Writing grants, and I also happen to be a graphic designer. So the thing about the CC, we're so lucky to have the group of volunteers that we have. And there's a lot of talent in our groups, but none of us are technical theater people.
Right.
I mean, I could learn how to do lighting and sound, but I don't want to, and I'm not going to. I'm already spread too thin. But I'm
No, I
confident.
think Jim's and my concern was just that, and I'm sure everyone else, was that it sort of was like, okay, you really needed two pieces of the pie, but the 30,000 wasn't gonna cover it. So we, until you came up and told us, we were unaware that there was an additional affiliated 503C to help. Okay. Thank you.
When Mr. Diggs was here to talk about this 2 weeks ago, maybe, and also at the selectmen meeting where it came up, and even tonight, I thought in all those settings, this 30,000 was for marketing, development, and that sort of thing. There's nothing in the job description that talks about that. So
Well, 'cause
what's the
that's not what-
connection? Why was it, am I alone in thinking that both Mr. Diggs and at the Board of Selectmen meeting, that was presented that way?
You're not wrong in that, but I think I think this being clear, there's clarification coming from the actual CCA tonight, as opposed to it coming from a third party that is introducing it. So I think we're getting some clarification tonight, and that's why I'm glad that everyone's here tonight to talk about it, and that's why we had you in. Because I think it was, the discussion was that money was looking towards maybe marketing in order to increase presence and income, so.
And I know that was, at least at the Board of Selectmen meeting, that was why it was clear, and Paul was questioning or certainly making it very obvious that this is a one-time thing. And I really question how you're gonna go hire somebody and not expect to come back next year and have the same need.
Here's all I'll say about this, is that I had a discussion with Paul and with Chairman Diggs, and I said I wasn't going to be back until the 13th of September, and I was supposed to present here, and then the Board of Selectmen on the 24th. So that number that was put on the table had nothing to do with anything that was presented to them.
Is that the number you were originally wanting to ask for?
Of course not.
What number were you originally wanting to ask for?
Really?
No, honestly, yeah.
Honestly?
Yeah.
I would like to have the money for that position and some money for marketing. And we were in the process of trying to figure out what that would be, which is, then I came up with the number that, I mean, I've
Right.
done the work
Yeah,
and showed you.
okay.
So, but that's not what was presented, so I had to change everything and work around what was mentioned, and so that's how we got where we are.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
A tough question, and I, I'm sorry to ask it, but I have to. You're asking for this money. How much more revenue do you think you can generate next year? You're asking for 30,000, you're saying you're not gonna come back. Okay,
Well, I
you're
didn't
trying.
say that.
No,
I
she
did
did not
I
say
did
that.
not. I did not say that.
Okay, you're hoping not to come back.
Right.
There you go.
Okay. How much revenue do you think you'll generate more than the 70? You've been pretty flat for the last 5 years.
Yeah, when I put the projections together, for this coming year, basing it on last year's FY, I'm looking at an increase as far as contributions of, pretty much doubling the contributions. I'm looking up to,
Susan, if you need to leave, I know you have a rehearsal.
Is that, I'm really sorry to
No,
ditch.
no, no, no,
No, no, no,
Thank you.
you
I
let us know
don't
what's gonna happen.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And you know where I am, so I have a
Thank you
cot
for all
under the.
you've done. Thank you for all you've done.
Yes,
Thank
thank you.
so I'm looking to double the contributions, and that's realistic. In that last year, we had about $10,000 worth of contributions. We do have the subcommittee put together for development. Development comes in two forms. It comes in memberships, and it comes in contributions, both from corporate and from residents. So I believe that's realistic. On top of that, as far as other revenue streams, we have box office and we have program receipts. Now, as Susan mentioned, we are mission-driven. Okay, so the program receipts, ideally, we would like to see come from the programming that we're offering and not from renting out to Toastmasters or B&I. That's not what we do. And this is something that we've really earnestly tried to stay consistent with, is generating money that reflects our mission. And that's why it was so important that we put the mission up there tonight. And over time, we have more money coming in just directly from our mission. I anticipate with additional marketing, I see an increase of another $10,000. for programming receipts, possibly up to $15,000. So putting on that, that's putting us up close to $100,000.
Thank you.
But that won't quite cover the
Won't
32.
quite cover the technical
No.
director, yeah.
No,
So if you're like 75, you're gonna get an extra, like 75,000 of revenue seems to be the
that we,
consistent.
that it was mentioned here that we've been pretty stable.
Yeah, so 75 plus an additional 10 in
10 to
donations.
15 in contributions, another 10 to 15,
Right.
and so now we're up to over
You're, so you're, yeah, but you're not, yeah, you're
Still
just
short.
getting to the point of being able to continue to afford that expense of the 32,000.
I have a question. So the additional 10 to 15, is that coming from the nonprofit that you had mentioned with the
That
grants
has
and
nothing
stuff?
to do with the grants that she
Okay.
made raised.
So what is the anticipated revenue from the nonprofit, from the grants and all of that?
Well, for a whole fiscal year,
Yeah,
I guess 15, 20.
okay. And that goes directly to,
It's think of the partners as a friend of, like Friends of the Library.
right,
All of the money raised by the Friends
goes to the operation
supports the
expense.
mission
Mhm.
of the-
of CCA.
How much,
Whether it's operation or programming or whatever.
how much have you raised in years past?
Well, our current balance right now is like 15,000
Okay,
in cash we've got.
all right. And you think that will stay steady, or do you think you'll be able to increase it next
So
year?
I'll be able to increase it.
And one more operational expense to address Kathy's questions. Currently, we do have a line item called contract services, and that captures the tech directors that we do bring in from time to time, and other help that we bring in, which then would be the technical director's job. So if you take the money that would be spent in contract services and you roll that over with the money that we're going to get from the additional receipts that we have, that more than will cover the technical director going forward.
How much do you pay in contract services? How much did you pay last year in contract services?
$60,000 in contract services, but keep in
How
mind,
much of that
that has
was-
to do with house cleaning.
Right, but how much of that was the jobs that the technical director can
About
take over?
40% of that would have been from that type of work.
Okay.
So 24,000.
Yep.
We did
All right,
60.
okay.
Okay.
So we got a decrease in that, we got an increase in grant writing and receipt, hopefully. Increase 10 to 15, but projected for marketing. Do you know what the spike was in FY16 that brought the revenue into 96,000?
I think that was, I don't really know, but for some reason I thought there was some sort of odd thing about the heating or the electricity that got, did they change something there? Was there something?
Yeah, but it's not like they had a large increase in revenue and and the expenses stayed in the 70s. The expenses are up around 90-something too.
Right, I don't know why I think at the time
It
there
may be
was-
that yeah, it was the
was some-
library and the schools,
Yeah.
and they,
I think
that's
that-
probably what that is.
So it was
That's-
in one door and right back
That's
out the
when
other.
it came back
Yeah.
in, they had to fix the heating in the system.
Right,
and the
okay.
I don't know
that's
why I
probably
think
what it is.
that, but
Okay.
I
That's the
remember a
thought.
discussion about that somewhere along the line.
Do you remember a discussion about the heating?
Go down that rabbit
That's
hole.
what all I can remember is heat.
It's only September.
I just want to ask a question. I know, like, since my daughter was heavily involved with the theater at CHS, I know that those students, when they get to be a senior that have been working with lighting and the technic, that they're like highly skilled. And I don't know if that would be like a nice fit as an internship or like, to have a student intern, either from one of the colleges or, CHS or one of the other high schools, because I think those students who put on those shows, by the time they're seniors, they're really running the lights and all of those things.
They also get paid for that, too.
Yeah, but not at,
Not
not this,
$500
and also-
a day.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
true.
they still get paid a nominal amount, but they have the skill set is what I'm saying.
Exactly
And I
right.
didn't know if that was like a mutually, like, but they're still doing it for a high school, they're not doing it for a Center for the Arts.
Well, even if they came in as an intern, they would be interning under the technical director, because none of the rest of us have the expertise to be able to,
You need someone to
Mentor.
run the ship, yeah.
we just, what, the technical director is the one piece that a paid person, we have to have it. The current model is just not sustainable.
Was there discussion of, so if the marketing plan works, contributions, corporate sponsorships, you're in the $20,000 to $40,000 increase. You're hoping to increase more on the Friends of side. If that came to be in a year, couldn't you fund this yourself without having to, if you just waited a year?
Ideally, I would like to move forward as we have done in the last 9 years, in self-funding. Susan, of course, would have a different answer. But I believe that we can do it, and we have been doing it for the last 9 years.
Any other questions? I'm sorry, you were gonna say?
I was just gonna say how lucky we are to have a group of really dedicated volunteers that have a lot of different talents to bring to the table.
All right.
Well, with that, we hope later on, when you make your recommendations, that you will endorse CCA's request for the $32,000. And thank you very much.
30.
30. Just tried.
I know, you tried.
Nice try,
Nice try.
$52,000.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, both of you, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda, we have the presentation and discussion of Warrant Article 21, the plastic bag reduction in business establishments. And with us tonight, we have a representative from the Recycling Committee, Rebecca Gore. Thank you for being here tonight.
I think this is going to be more of a discussion. I am not the driving factor behind the plastic bag ban, but I am in full, I support it wholeheartedly. As a member of the recycling committee, I think it's very important to get as many single-use plastic bags out of circulation as possible. We don't want them blowing along the sides of the streets and making Chelmsford basically looking trashy. And they represent a cost to society and to individuals that really goes unnoticed. But we all have plastic particulate in our bodies now. And it would be a really good idea to reduce the load, and this is one way to go about doing it. And somewhere around 80 communities in the Commonwealth have already instituted single-use plastic bag bans, including Westford and Lowell. And I believe there was a bill up for a statewide ban, in which case we'd have to do it anyway. And that didn't get through the legislature this time, but I'm sure people are going to revisit that in the future. So this is something that is coming. And we thought that it would be a good idea for Chelmsford to do it on Chelmsford's terms. And Kevin Vasilla is the person who's been the motivating driving factor in this ban. So he's more knowledgeable about it than I am. I went, oh, I should see what the warrant item says before I go to the meeting. Because I have an old version, and I know he's been working with Paul, because Paul had planned to have a warrant item, given all the surrounding communities are planning to do this, that we didn't want Chelmsford to be a little beacon of plastic bag trash. And I think it's an issue whose time is coming, and hopefully it will come this October in Chelmsford. So I apologize that I haven't got more of a presentation. I just found out about this 2 days ago. So, and I know Kevin's going to the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday. And so I'm here to have the discussion, because I think it's an important issue.
Excuse me.
So do we have any, yes?
I have a question or clarification. I noticed that the inspector of buildings is the designee who would enforce this. How did that come about, or how is that designated?
I'm assuming that that's something the town manager recommended, because I don't know how that would work. But,
I couldn't hear what you said. What her question?
Oh, the inspector of buildings or his designee is hereby designated and authorized as the officer charged with the enforcement of the bylaw in 4.1, if I'm reading it
Mhm.
correctly.
Are you reading correctly?
And so I'm curious what he does, or how he would carry that out. Do you know?
I would guess walk through the store and see if there are plastic bags.
Does he typically inspect stores? I mean, are we talking any stores, or, I'm just wondering how they go about doing such a thing, or would he do it on a
It's
certain
gonna
basis?
increase in their
The
workload.
load,
I mean, like
right,
we
right.
talked about the Board of Health.
Yeah.
With the other two warrant articles, you know, will this increase his workload?
I mean, how many stores use these, right? Do we know?
Well,
All of them.
every single one in town.
Right.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, wouldn't that almost be a full-time kind of effort?
well, it depends on how well people comply.
Well, right, you hope they comply, right?
Well, yes, the idea
course.
would be is that they're doing it in all sorts of other communities. I mean, they're gonna have to do it in Lowell, they're gonna have to do it
Right.
there in Westford, and,
When does Lowell's ban go into effect?
I believe it's about the same time we're,
As ours would if it
yes,
passes?
in July.
And is theirs, do you happen to know if theirs is a full ban like ours, or is there gonna be?
Yes.
It is.
Yes, this bill was, this warrant
Mirrors?
item was pretty much based on, they're all very similar,
Okay.
and this is very similar to all the others.
Did the recycle committee look at any other options other than a full ban? Like, for example, in New York, you can't get a plastic bag unless you pay 4 cents per bag. Like, they're not allowed to offer it to you, but you can say, I want one, and they charge you 4
Well,
cents.
the
for that.
idea is that we don't want them to be the single use. We
Mhm.
like them out of, because it's hard to recycle them.
Mhm.
If they go into the curbside recycling, they break the machinery,
Mhm.
so they're a hazard in that circumstance. So we would basically like to see them go away.
How different are these bags from the plastic bags we use for our trash, or like for, to pick up after our dogs?
Well, it depends on, the trash bags are thicker,
Okay,
and you don't, the idea is to get people to use reusable ones, so they use them over and over and over again. And some things are excluded, like the
I saw like this-
plastic film that goes over
3.2.
groceries
Yeah.
and
Yep.
dry cleaning plastic,
Mhm.
and so there are some things that aren't part of this.
but from an environmental and health standpoint,
Mhm.
how are these bags different than the other plastic bags that we use? Like,
They're probably not different, it's just this is such a large burden
okay,
that it seemed to be a very good first step in getting some of the plastic out of the environment.
I think it's the prevalence of them.
yeah, no, I was just curious.
Yeah, so usually the ones that are used for trash, or even for, recycle cleanup, stuff like that, they're the larger mills. So this is, in 2.2, it's 4 mills or less, that's being banned.
So what about things like, well, for example, like the farmer's market, or like the book fairs in the schools? A lot of those, like,
So the farmer's market has actually been offering reusable bags for
Okay.
$1 purchase, and a lot of people have been doing that.
So my concern with that, though, is that now there's a population that, in our town that, is gonna be
So I think the answer to that is that,
discouraged by this. I mean, because they
Yeah.
can't, we do have some low-income families in town that $1 a bag, even though I understand you can reuse them, but if they're going grocery shopping at Market Basket and they have to buy
no, I understand what
6
you're
or
saying.
7 bags,
There's no
that's-
ban on paper bags.
True,
So I think that's the answer that
Okay.
we're gonna, I
So
think
they
that
can
would be
use
your
paper
answer.
bags.
okay.
Those are a better alternative. As far as getting plastic out of the environment. They have other issues, but,
Yeah.
as
Well,
far as
I
Yeah,
getting
mean-
yeah, I
plastic
mean,
out
I
of the
remember we tried to
environment.
ban, those
Fight
tried
your
to get
battles.
banned
Pick
back in
your
the
poison,
80s.
fight your battles, yeah.
Right, right,
Right,
right.
yeah, yeah.
And you
Okay.
and Market Basket has reusable,
Right,
heavier plastic bags that they sell.
right.
And once you buy it, you bring it with you and it doesn't cost you anything.
Your concern was
My
the
concern's-
initial purchase.
The initial
price, yeah.
purchase, yeah. I mean, we have a lot of families out there that are, struggling.
I think
So that's just
the
a
paper
concern.
is the answer.
The paper would be the answer,
that you're looking
assuming
for.
the stores do the paper.
Well, well,
think you
some,
have to ask.
you have to ask for it.
Yeah.
They do, most of them do carry it, especially the grocery stores.
have to ask for
The
it,
other
right?
stores, I mean, someplace like a TJ Maxx, they usually have one available. Stuff like that, is gonna have paper bags.
So and then just based on the business, the definition of business, like the school book fairs wouldn't be included in that, right?
I wouldn't think so.
Retail store, supermarket, general department store, and takeout retail. I mean, that's more like pop-up retail for like a week.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that there's not an undue burden put on the volunteers there, that they're given the bags by Scholastic. I don't want the school or the PTOs to get
I
in
see
trouble.
what you're saying.
And they use the bags, because, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen a fourth grader try to walk with a whole bunch of books. Or a
Yep.
kindergarten, for that matter. So they do use the bags. I just don't want
See a
any, I
two-and-a-half-year-old
don't want
do it.
anyone to get in trouble for that. is
I
what's
don't
what
think
I'm
they'd be
thinking.
considered a business
wouldn't?
under this definition.
Okay.
I mean, people can argue that, but
Yeah.
that doesn't, they're
That's not
not.
their
a re-
intent.
They're not a retail business.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions? I think we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
All right, next on the agenda, we have a presentation or discussion of warrant articles 16 for signs and flags, 17 for animal accessory dwellings, 18 historical preservation reuse, 19 multifamily definition revision, and 20 Route 129 BAOD 278 and 282 Mill Road removal from a commercial exclusion zone.
Sound like that guy that does the quick little, legalese at the end of the ad. That was good, I was impressed.
So, good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
I am Evan Belansky, the Director of Community Development, and with me tonight is Mike Raisbeck, the Chair of the Planning Board, and Nancy Arroway, a Planning Board member, and Donald Van Dyne, a second Planning Board member. So you want to start with Article 16, is it?
Yeah, well, we'll straight in order, numerical, if that's okay with you.
Yep. Yep. So Article 16 is very straightforward. This issue results from events that took place over the summer. And at the request and urging of the Board of Selectmen and Town Manager, the Planning Board took this under their guidance and came up with the language that is in front of you this evening. So this proposed amendment proposes to eliminate all zoning regulation as it pertains to the display of flags and insignia related to any government entity. The current zoning bylaw has the language in there that's struck in this version, which regulates the display of flags in connection with a commercial promotion. That determination is at the discretion and under the authority of the building commissioner, the zoning officer in town. So as I indicated, as proposed, the revision would eliminate any regulation of commercial promotion associated with displays of flags associated with governmental entities.
So under this now, you can have a 10 by 20 flag as long as it's a state government flag?
You can have any size and any number, any location.
Okay.
There will be
As long as it's
absolutely
a
no.
piece of cloth or similar material.
Correct.
Attached at one end to a staff report.
Correct. So this still continues the prohibition of gimmick flags, gimmick displays, but a pure kind of flag, traditional, conventional use of the flag will be completely unregulated.
Okay. Any other questions?
What is the gimmick use of a flag?
Yeah,
Commercial.
like a balloon, a gorilla,
Okay.
a car, wrapped in a flag,
Okay.
streamers, things of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
What about altered American flags, like, like the one in support of the police with the blue line?
And
or
that ceases to be the flag of a government entity.
At that point, okay.
So what's important to keep in mind here are examples like that. If they've never been an issue before, they're likely not going to be an issue before. They're not intended to be captured in this. This is
Okay.
This is a direct result of the
The issue that happened,
I
right.
think everybody knows what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
we know what you're talking about. I live right across from it, trust me, I knew what you're talking about.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was Article 16. Article 17, there's some backstory to this, but
I think we're all aware of that one, too.
Again, we're all aware on that one.
No pun intended.
the essence...
We were here last Wednesday in here, yeah. Yeah.
So the essence of this one is that, as of right now, the planning board has held their public hearing, closed their public hearing, and made a positive recommendation on the language as you see in front of you this evening. I will note, and Mike and Nan can provide some additional comments on this, the planning board has continued to engage with the Board of Health as recently as this past Tuesday at their meeting, and then it was agreed that the Board of Health would visit the planning board at next Wednesday's meeting. The reason that that's important is that while this article cannot be changed between now and town meeting, the planning board, as the sponsor, can certainly withdraw it or entertain friendly amendments on the floor. So I think that's what the planning board and Board of Health are trying to work out at this point.
Okay.
If you have any specific questions, Mike and Nan, I think, are the best to speak on behalf of this particular article.
So this is staying as it was originally intended.
So it evolved, but as far as the planning board process is concerned, this has not changed. This is what the planning board voted on. What the Board of Health and the planning board are potentially discussing is the Board of Health had a slightly different version than the planning board's version, and I think they're trying to work out some details so that there would be potentially a friendly amendment on town meeting floor. Obviously, there could be a withdrawal, and regulation would stay exactly as it is right now.
I mean, I can't state with any certainty because the board hasn't met on it
Right.
since talking to the Board of Health, but I'd say there's a reasonably good chance of one or the other of those two outcomes come next
Right.
Wednesday.
So current regulation is you need a minimum of 40,000 square feet, period, the end. So
For either one or two?
item number 1 is existing language. That has not changed.
Okay.
Item 2 is new language. Item 3 is new language. And item 4 is existing, unchanged language. So the primary difference is that under current zoning, for small animals, including game birds and chickens, you also need 40,000 minimum lot area.
Okay.
Under the Board of Health original proposal, they were proposing to reduce that to 20,000. The planning board process, this is what came out of the planning board process.
Okay.
Just a quick question on 4. How are the people supposed to get rid of the waste? Yeah, I know how this sort of restricts.
There are a couple of ways. I mean, people with larger areas will often put it on the compost heap under the leaves, and it'll just disappear in there. But yeah, it can be thrown out as well. It can be, you can send it out as trash. And
It can go out in the trash.
Yeah.
Just like dog.
Yeah, just like dog and
Yeah.
cat.
Yeah, the kitty litter,
Litter.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, you said number 1 is unchanged?
Correct.
That's exactly the way it reads now?
Correct.
Up to 2 cattle, meaning a cattle and a horse would satisfy that, okay. I would like a little bit more precise language, but if that's consistent with what's currently there, I'm not gonna complain about it. Okay, so the change is adding, so I guess, what was it, or was there no regulation on smaller animals?
You said 40, it was like 40.
Yeah, there was a 40,000.
It was the 40,000, so we've changed the,
Lowered it to 15.
Although you'll note that with the 50-foot from the budding property line, doing a little math, you can't get very much smaller than that and have any chance
Right.
of meeting those requirements as well.
So 40,000 square feet is like an acre lot.
That's an acre lot,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah.
And 1,500 square feet?
15,000.
15,000.
It's a little under half an acre, maybe a third of an acre.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little more than a third.
Okay.
And what percentage of lots in Chelmsford are 1 acre lots and what percentage are less? I mean,
Come on up.
I'm just curious
Welcome,
because
Nancy.
like,
Number, she did that, She did that work.
You got the mic.
I did that work. So just under 1/5 of our lots are an acre or more. So about 19% of our lots currently qualify as having sufficient size to entertain small animals at all. So the problem is that small animals are popular, and there's a lot more people than 1/5 of our residential, multifamily, because that doesn't count multifamilies, apartment buildings and such. But there's a lot more than, that 1/5 that would like to have some amount of small animals. So that's how we got into this.
So what percentage of lots in town are 15,000 square acres or less?
Square feet.
Sorry, square
Square
feet.
feet.
Yeah, thank you.
There is a little bit more than 1/5 that are less
That
than
are
that.
less than that, all right. So the majority of town is between the 15 and the 40.
That's right.
Hi, is grandfathering a consideration, or what is the timeline that's proposed to comply for this?
So grandfathering only pertains to lots or properties that are not in violation.
Right.
So as long as they have 40,000 square feet and have the permit from the Board of Health,
You're compliant.
Because right now, if you're under 40,000 square feet, you're not supposed to have.
You
Yep.
technically
Permit.
cannot get a permit.
Okay. So by lowering this, anyone who has a permit now is obviously going to be in compliance, and it's going to open up the door for more people to be in
That's right.
compliance. Okay. Can I ask why the Board of Health felt that 25 was good and you guys lowered it to 15?
That's a good question.
They requested 20,000, and when we put it, we needed to do some changes to the wording because the way it was worded just
It was vague.
wasn't regulatable. Yeah. So as we were doing those changes, we shifted from doing additional allowances by blocks of numbers to single implementation, single animal implementation. So instead of, for instance, 10 additional animals for every 15,000 square feet, we made it 1 additional animal for every 1,500 square feet. So it was a gradual slide based on the lot size. And as we did that shuffling, this is what came out of it.
Okay. So it's not that there's a large amount of property in town that's between the 15 and the 20, and you wanted to make sure they were included. This was a math
This was a
calculation. Okay.
This was a math
All right,
calculation.
thank you.
Yeah, and note that with the 50-foot numbers on there, I mentioned this
Yeah,
earlier.
it's very small.
It's very
Yeah.
hard
Margin
to
for
find a
error.
way to put this on a lot that's
Yeah.
less than 15,000 square feet.
It's going to be very hard for a lot that's 15,000 square feet.
Even at that, even at
At that,
20,
it's
depending on where the
difficult.
house is on the
Yeah.
lot,
Yeah.
you run into some difficulties, so.
Do we anticipate that there are a lot of people out of compliance that will have to?
Apparently they're more than I
Apparently,
I
there's a
have been
lot
aware.
of people with chickens that have chickens that are not registered.
shouldn't, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know it was 40.
How would that be monitored? Is that the
Popeyes.
Pardon me?
Popeyes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Buffalo chicken.
KFC?
McDonald's has some
Boston
new ones.
Market.
Yeah, Boston Market.
So the inclination of how much is out there, I believe, came from a conversation with the folks at Agway.
Oh, okay.
in terms of how much
Mm.
How much
chicken
feed
feed
are they
they
selling?
go through.
Interesting.
Selling a lot of chicken feed.
And
More
they're selling
than
a
the
lot
chickens
of
that are on the
chicken feed.
40,000 or more lots.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there are chickens out there.
Tell me about it.
And you only become aware of them when they become a problem.
That's right. Which unfortunately recently
Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
well aware.
have a situation that has.
Okay. Thank you.
any more questions on 17?
I think we're good.
So I'll do the high-level introduction on Article 18. Nan was the primary author of this particular article. So at a high level, it's in accordance and consistent with the 2010 master plan. There's a specific recommendation to pursue creating new zoning provisions to promote and encourage preservation of historic structures in town. It's also in accordance with the 2013 historical and cultural master plan, which dug further down and drilled down and really articulated the local need for zoning regulations to encourage historical preservation. Most recently, the Chelmsford Historical Commission, who's the primary entity who would advocate and encourage preservation of historic structures, voted to support this article. So as I indicated, it's intended to promote, encourage, and provide incentives for historic preservation of primarily single-family structures. It requires a local historic covenant as a means to guarantee that public benefit. And all the special permit granting authority in this zoning bylaw would be with the planning board. Want to add some other comments to this?
Yeah, I'll add a couple. The primary impetus of this is that old houses are expensive to maintain and renovate. In order to change the use on them, you have to bring them up to code, and there's a lot of expense involved in that. We can't legislate the preservation of our historic structures. We can delay it with the demolition delay bylaw, but we can't stop it. So then the alternative is provide incentives to developers that will give them something back for maintaining it. And that's what this bylaw does. It allows an extra unit. The current bylaws permit these properties to be turned into duplexes. This bylaw, with no restrictions on them, this bylaw allows it to go to 3 families with restrictive covenants. So you can still take it to a duplex and not make any commitments to preserve the building, but to take it to 3 units, you have to make that commitment with a town covenant to preserve the exterior of the structure. It also allows a financial incentive in terms of splitting lots to less than the current zoned lot size for these structures, to provide one extra, the financial incentive of one extra lot. The checks and balances are basically the size of the units. So there's a minimum square footage for each of the units that is required. So you can't do this with little houses. And there is a restriction that parking is not to be put in the front yard, and that it must be, and you must provide enough parking to meet the 3-family regulations. So you can't put it on a really small lot either, because you wouldn't be able to get your parking requirements in. So those are kind of the checks and balances built in to prevent really high-density development.
So now this, and just for clarification for people at home, because they're not necessarily reading all of this, this is just for increasing occupancy. This has nothing to do with renovating an old home. This is just when you're increasing it from a single family to a now 2 or 3 family. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The preservation restrictions would kick in only if you want to get the extra unit or extra lot benefits.
Right.
And placing the preservation restrictions on it is the give back that the developer has to
Right.
give in order to get that financial incentive.
Just want to make sure it's clear
No,
for
no,
everyone
yeah,
at home, that
yeah.
this is not if you're putting an addition on your house for a living room or.
Absolutely
okay.
not. not at all.
What percentage of houses do you think in Chelmsford would fall into this category? I mean, we have a,
This is 1938, right?
This is 75 years old, or more.
Right, it's a 1938, I think is what it said,
And
right?
the old restriction was 38.
Okay.
This one is 75 years old or more, so it would be
Okay.
anything that would come under
free.
demolition delays. Yeah.
Okay.
There's probably upwards, what, 3,000 homes in town?
I think there could be
About a
that
third
many.
of the primary residential
Yeah.
structures.
Certainly, all of those wouldn't be of a size or a lot size that you could do this, but a good percentage of them very well could be.
Just a final comment on this. This bylaw is somewhat ahead of its time. If you read the Boston Globe and know what's going on in Lexington, they're losing tremendous amounts of their historic structures in town. So they're kind of trying to play catch-up and come up with solutions that would meet a local need.
It's a proactive
Planning board believes this is a
Yeah.
proactive step to allow the Historical Commission and Planning Board to work together to provide tools to work with developers and homeowners to save historic structures.
Now, if somebody, I had already done this before this came into play, or they, or they're in the process of it, would they be grandfathered in?
So as Nancy mentioned, there are existing provisions in the zoning bylaw that allow conversions from single-family to two-family. That's increasingly more popular.
Yeah,
There are zoning mechanisms where someone can currently attempt to do this, but they would be going to the zoning board and asking for a lot of zoning relief. This process codifies that the town is willing and interested to partner in those solutions.
it makes it more efficient.
It makes it more palatable and more workable.
Yep.
Thank you. 19.
Should have moved this along.
That's a lengthy one.
Also introducing a whole new section of the code.
That's a whole
Yeah.
section.
Okay.
Perfect.
Article 19 is a fairly minor, but it achieves a substantial goal and objective and deficiency within the current zoning bylaw. So the current zoning bylaw defines multifamily where it needs 3 or more units within one structure. That definition complements the multifamily zoning bylaw that we have in town. So those two are in concert with one another. And that was not a mistake. But what is evolved over a period of time is that a lot of development is not taking place within the RM multifamily districts, but multifamily development is still occurring via other zoning mechanisms, particularly the COID redevelopment overlay bylaw. So what this zoning provision is intending to do is to allow some flexibility to allow multifamily units to be built in a detached form. A detached form would result in townhouse ownership-style development rather than a typical apartment rental building. What that would do is, as I said, allow some diversity and more options for the proponent and the planning board and the neighborhood to work together. And not surprisingly, as many of you likely know, many neighborhoods in Chelmsford would prefer to see townhouse ownership-style residential development than rental apartment building. So this would provide that opportunity. Without this amendment, that opportunity would not exist. There's nothing within the planning board regulations or flexibility that would allow the planning board to override that definition. That definition would have to be overridden by a variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. and that's a cumbersome and somewhat problematic process.
You don't like going after variances?
Right. Editorially, townhouse development usually results in less units per acre, less square footage. So all in all, if the community is interested in promoting more diversification of housing and wants to allow or encourage more ownership, this provision would allow that opportunity. Nan, Mike, anything on that?
No, I think you've covered it.
And I think you said it well. It's really supplying options to the developers in terms of the types of housing they can put in places where big block apartments don't really fit.
And a potentially more attractive option for the neighbors
That's
involved as
right.
well, yeah.
We've heard that a lot recently with some of the stuff we've been doing.
And the neighborhoods know best. It's
Yep.
the- you know, they know their neighborhood better than anyone else. Okay?
All right. And finally, 20.
So Article 20, the planning board is scheduled to open this hearing next Wednesday. So the planning board has not opened this public hearing. They have not taken any testimony and obviously have not voted their recommendation yet. But it's within this warrant with the expectation that the planning board process is resolved. So this is a fairly straightforward zoning. It's a zoning map amendment within the Route 129 Business Amenity Overlay District. It proposes to take two parcels, as you can see on the red outline box. That box contains two about half-acre parcels. Both of them are vacant. They used to have single-family homes one on each lot. The address is 278, 282 Mill Road, just across the street from Lifelinks, the former Lifelinks. The reason for this proposal is that we've been engaged with the property owner and commercial broker prior to the 129 overlay and since the adoption of the Route 129 overlay. The history of this parcel is that the planning board previously approved this parcel under the COID, the redevelopment bylaw, prior to the adoption of the Route 129 overlay bylaw as a 10,000 square foot, two-story contractor yard. It was going to be owner-occupied contractor yard. Since then, that particular owner has put the property up for sale. We've been engaged with all kinds of potential uses. Hotels was one potential use that was explored and deemed not viable due to the size of the property. So most recently, about 5 weeks ago, we met with them again, and they proposed the notion of building about 5,600 square foot retail restaurant, 2 or 3 tenant, one building development. We indicated to them that would require a zoning map amendment because this particular parcel is in the commercial exclusion zone within the 129 overlay. The commercial exclusion zone ends at these two parcels and heads south along Mill Road. So about 3 weeks ago, we brought it to the planning board's attention. They indicated their interest in holding the public hearing, which brings us to this evening and then next Wednesday evening.
So Evan, the parcel that is below the highlighted parcel, that is still in the commercial exclusion zone?
Correct. That's currently built and occupied as Princeton at Mill and 3.
So that is, okay.
Yes.
So it's gonna be a restaurant? Is that what the?
So there was the concept plan, which the planning board will see and likely would be presented to town meeting, would consist of about a 5,600 square foot, single structure, multi-tenants. So one of those tenants could be restaurant, food service, one could be retail, there may be upwards of 3 individual tenants within that 5,600 square feet.
Sort of similar, but a single building to the one that's being proposed a little further down the road on 129.
The entrance would be from 129 or from Mill Road?
From Mill Road.
So yeah, if you look at that, that's Mill Road that's going through the center, and 129 is the very top right
Oh,
corner.
okay, I see.
So if you took a left onto Mill Road, coming up from the highway from Billerica, that's where Mill Road is coming down through the center of the map.
I see.
So it's before the curve. So then there's another business over here. As you go further along, another business up in the hill back behind. So it's not as if it's right next to a residential property. It's just in that residential exclusion zone based upon the map that was drawn, that was agreed to when we were doing the.
Okay, I see now, thank you.
So are you guys planning on meeting again between now and town meeting?
No, this is it.
This is it, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
our
we've
timelines
given
change.
We need to talk about that.
we've given you as much information as possible. We can't even
understand.
talk about how the planning board, there's no straw poll or anything of that
I
nature.
appreciate that. Okay. Does anybody have, any limited questions?
The only final comment I'll make, which I'll reiterate at next Wednesday's public hearing, is under current zoning, it's likely to be built as some sort of contractor yard. That's still a demand in the,
It's still industrial.
still a demand in the area, it's still zoned industrial. It's unlikely multifamily is going to get built there.
Yeah, it's not as if it's an RC and RM. That's
Right.
industrial, yeah.
Right. So then I think next Wednesday, the planning board will probably look at what can be built under current zoning, what is this proposal? And I will also say, because it's important, next Wednesday at the planning board public hearing, the actual developer who's the proponent of this will be appearing before the planning board. So the board will be seeing a specific proposed development, which will then likely be presented to town meeting.
This isn't ephemeral, there's action involved with the property, yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you all for
Very
coming.
good, thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too.
A long night.
But we're moving along.
We haven't started voting yet.
No, I understand, but I'm saying we got through the stuff a lot
Speaking of
faster
which,
than I
if
thought.
anyone heard from you?
Yeah, I did, she's on her way.
And do it before town meeting.
She wanted to know if we wanted coffee. I said,
I think you'll have to.
we're all caffeinated enough.
Day of town meeting.
We're through the presentation portion of our meeting. So usually, before we take a vote, both in the fall and the spring, I've tried to include a section of public comment for our own recommendations and discussions. So at this time, I'd like to invite anybody who would like to speak under public comment concerning any of the articles which we are going to vote our recommendations on this evening, to come forward. Please state your name and then what you'd like to speak about. Pull up a chair.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is John Shemley. I am a resident of 2 Douglas Road in Chelmsford, and also president and CEO of Trinity EMS. I brought with me tonight John Kelly. He's our director of IT, and also our communications director at Trinity. Ironically, we're here tonight to try to save us money rather than spend it. We understand that you may have a warrant article in front of you that may include a fire station study, as well as an ambulance feasibility study over the next year to 18 months. Simply stated, our goal is to ascertain whether or not spending $85,000 to $90,000 or more on a fire study, combined with a municipal ambulance feasibility study, is prudent at this time, given the fiscal restraints in the town. 4 times in the past 24 years, the town has spent hundreds of man-hours and thousands of dollars to study a possible switch to a town-run ambulance. All 4 times, the facts pointed to maintain a private ambulance structure. Since the last study in 2008, many things have changed in the ambulance industry. As we have all seen, healthcare costs have skyrocketed, employee benefits have skyrocketed, payroll, insurance, workers' compensation, et cetera, et cetera. Vehicle costs, maintenance, fuel, equipment, they've all gone up. Unfortunately, during that time, our reimbursements have gone down. For instance, in the town of Chelmsford, 51% of the patients that have been transported in 2017 had Medicare as their primary insurance. In 2007, when the last study was conducted, the average rate for a Medicare patient was $405.50. That was what we were getting paid. Today, this rate stands at $406.20. Imagine a 70-cent increase in reimbursement in 11 years. That represents a $69 per call loss in today's dollars for our largest patient population. Moreover, the current call volume in the town necessitates at least 2 daytime ambulances, doubling the costs of the operations already projected. Even with these 2 ambulances, our records also show that the town will need mutual aid ambulances on a daily basis from other towns, increasing critical response times. Since 2010, Trinity has not had to rely on mutual aid for any Chelmsford residents in over 8 years. Pretty basically, the quantitative analysis suggests that it's not feasible in the town, it's not profitable. The qualitative analysis, however, is even more concerning. There'll be many, many days during the months and weeks, should this happen, that you will have no ambulances in the town. And if you do get an ambulance from mutual aid, it will be a 20 to 25-minute response time from other towns. We've had several instances in the past 24 years where we had to speak on this subject, and several things that turned the tide in favor of privatization was healthcare costs upon retirement, pension costs upon retirement, and the killer really was the mutual aid. The ambulances coming from other towns and our ambulances leaving town to help other towns left this town with no resources. The choice is simple. Should the town spend thousands and tens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of man-hours on a study that will ultimately lead to the same conclusion as the previous 4 studies? Or should the pending study carve out the ambulance feasibility portion and focus their efforts on other proposed components? We think it's the latter. I appreciate the fact that you allowed me to come here tonight, Mr. Chairman. We talked last night, and he mentioned, John, you're very welcome to come and speak. I wish I had a presentation like that. John, as far as qualitative and quantitative stuff, that's what he does. And we have more facts and more figures to show you that subsidizing an $80,000 cost study will ultimately lead to the same thing that's happened for the last 20 years. And we're here now for any questions that you might ask.
How much do you charge the other, I understand what you get from Medicare, so what do you charge for people who are not getting Medicare, other insurance companies?
Our base rates, I can certainly give you a list of our base rates, but about $1,000.
And what do normal healthcare companies pay of that $1,000?
That's a great question. Blue Cross Blue Shield, for instance, will pay us in full. However, as a non-par provider, they won't pay us in full unless we contract with them. Now, interestingly enough, I spoke with Comstar, which is going to be probably your service that will do the billing for the town. And no municipal ambulances are contracted with Blue Cross Blue Shield or many of the other. They don't pay enough. They pay 40 cents on the dollar.
Okay. How many, there must be certain insurance companies that you prefer, that you have you pay versus, I don't know if I'm asking the question correctly or not, versus others that, for instance, you say Blue Cross Blue Shield. Well, if it's Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, it pays you different than Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts.
Yes, and Blue Cross, Anthem Blue Cross of New Hampshire pays us different than Anthem Blue
Right,
Cross of
so,
Illinois. Yes.
yeah.
We accept their payments.
As full?
It depends on the patient's copay. If the patient does have a copay, then we'll bill the patient for their copay.
And did you,
So I have one last question. So if somebody told me that they had Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, and that they took an ambulance ride from your company and went to Lowell, okay, their insurance company would have paid X, and they would not have been charged $961 more on top of that. Is that
Depends
correct?
on their copay.
Oh,
It depends on the person's insurance. So if the
It
person's
depends on
insurance
insurance.
requires them to provide a copay
Percentage,
per year,
yeah.
percentage of the payment, then they will have to pay the amount that's not covered by their
I
insurance.
understand not covered by the copay, but that simply says the copay plus $961 you would charge.
Yes. Now, those patients always told by our billing department to write a letter of hardship saying, I can't afford that. And we generally will write it off, or we reduce it substantially, more than 50%. And we offer monthly payments, et cetera, et cetera.
And just to be clear, right, like someone, like, and I can give you an example, my father-in-law lived in Florida. He chose Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida, but he paid a premium because he used to spend his summer up in Maine. And he wanted to make sure that should anything happen, he would have the same coverage. So it's
be a
individuals,
network.
when you're choosing your insurance, that you choose the one that is going to cover you where you're going to be. My father travels to Italy a lot. He pays a premium to make sure that he's covered should anything happen when he's there. You have the choice not to get that insurance. You know, that's how the insurance company works.
And should that payment that you're talking about, that additional payment, be a hardship, they talk to me about it, and I write it off. Or I substantially reduce it, and on top of the reduction, I give them a monthly, and when I say monthly, I'm talking $25 to $50 a month. But I always reduce it. Doesn't happen often, but, yeah, that's what happens.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly,
And I
Anita.
apologize for coming in at the end of this, so if you've already covered it, I apologize.
No, we just started.
Are your employees unionized?
No, they're not. One of the reasons, through some of the visuals that we would show you tonight, you might ask, and some of the things that I mentioned earlier, you might ask, well, John, why are you doing this? If this is so tough and such a tough business and reimbursements are going down, how can you make a profit? What do you do? The answer is very simple. I'm not union. My costs are 25 to 35% less than a union shop, including the ambulance. My ambulances cost $100,000. Municipal ambulance is anywhere between $200,000 and $250,000.
And can I just ask you, in the last 10 years since the study was done, what have been your rates? How much have they increased?
We generally increase the rates 3 to 5% per year. And I have a deal, I have a deal with Mr. Cohen. I don't have this deal with, we have 13 911 communities as well. We cover hundreds of thousands of lives. We do about 80,000 calls per year. I have a deal with Mr. Cohen that if ever we raise our rates, I have to ask him first. He's got to be notified in writing or email that we are raising our rates.
And do you have someone dedicated to work with the healthcare companies and contracting rates? And I know when I used to work in a firm that was healthcare, we used to have a whole department just negotiating our rates with healthcare, because that was always changing. Do you have?
Yes,
stuff like that?
Robin Schoen is our Director of Receivables, and Susan is her Vice President, so to speak. And that's who we deal with. And Fallon Insurance, for instance, we went to Worcester a few months ago, and they're starting HMOs now and ACOs, and they're doing all this stuff, even Medicaid, which is 12 or 13% of your business here in town. Even Medicaid now is starting an ACO that's going to cut the rates for below the Medicaid rates that they are now. So I went myself to try to deal with Fallon, we did eventually sign with them, because I wanted the business.
Question, it just, in your talking, I found a comment a little bit. Do we have a contract with you?
Oh, yes, sir.
And you can raise prices in that contract? All you
Yes.
have to do is get the town manager's approval?
Yes.
Really?
That's a contract. Contracts allow for price increases, just like union contracts allow for price increases.
Are there any controls on it, other than the town manager's approval?
Just, the controls are internal. In other words, we haven't given you an increase in rates. There are several years before we generally increase rates, and generally it's a 3 to 4% increase. And we
Thanks.
have gone several years without an increase.
But you bid the business every 3 years, I think, 2 years?
Yes,
So
we
that's-
just signed a contract. Our contract now runs through March or April of 2020. And after this contract, there is 2 one-year extensions that can apply to this at the town's discretion.
You usually go in front of the selectmen for that, right?
Yes.
We
Mhm.
present
Yeah,
it.
as far as the extensions go, if the manager wants us to come and explain why we would like the extension, we can do that. But generally, in all our other towns, the contracts are all built the same way. They're automatically extended.
Do I understand correctly that you're relocating a facility, you're building a new facility?
Yes, sir. We're just getting the permits together now. We are on Turnpike Road. We were at Cushing Place, as you know.
Yep.
And we got booted out of there. Too soon, I think.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful place to be. We've been there for 24 years. And it's a wonderful place to be. It was a great central location. But we found another great central location, which is the drive-through center of the old Mass Bank / Eastern Bank at the corner of Fletcher Street and North Road. It is now, there's a red brick building there. It's a financial institution. And behind it is the old 3-bay drive-through area. And we have the funding already. We're going to spend about $150,000, if not more, expanding that and putting garage doors in and closing it.
Okay.
We've been before the Planning Board, Historical Commission, Zoning Board. We've been through everything. We've been approved all the way down the line. So now we're getting our permits together. And that's what we're going to be.
Okay.
Am I wary that this thing goes through after I spend $150,000 on a place that I'm renting? But we did sign a 5-year deal with her, and it has a 5-year extension on that as well.
Okay.
So, and we're about 2 years into that deal as we speak.
Okay.
But I'm willing to take the risk.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're still in public comment. Does anyone else that would like to approach and speak? They're welcome to do so. All right, seeing none,
Time to hunker down.
yeah. It's time for the long haul.
Time to go to work.
Vote on recommendations for fall town meeting warrant articles.
I'm happy to present and read them as we go, if that's fine.
All yours.
I don't see too many people clamoring to take over for you, Kathy.
You do it very well.
That's sweet.
I'll butter you up. I have no problem
So,
doing that.
as custom, I'll present them in the positive, and then after discussion, if that's not the case, then
You vote up or down, and then,
Yeah.
exactly, yep.
Okay.
We should, when we go to vote in for reorg in December, when we said, we should make a position for reader of the warrants.
Reader.
I like that.
Yeah,
Make it
I love that
official. I think we should, yeah.
have it.
I think we can do that ad hoc.
Okay, beginning with Article 3. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to amend the fiscal 2019 operating budget adopted under Articles 4, 5, and 6 of the warrant for spring annual town meeting.
Actually, can we start an article, let's go straight through from 1.
Okay.
we'll take no action on Article 1. But Article 2, there is a funding amount that we've been given for funding of collective bargaining agreements.
Oh, I didn't get that amount of money, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's 158.23 if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Okay, please forgive me. So starting, see, I already need to lose my position.
No, you're good.
Anybody
You're
else
good.
want to
You're
go?
good.
No.
You're only human.
Everyone's good for it.
Article 2, to see if the town will vote to raise, I make a motion that we accept Article 2, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds $158.23 to fund employee contract agreements between the town and its collective bargaining units.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
So this is just for one agreement, correct?
Yeah, currently, we only have the agreement with the one. I believe the other one
The
went
other
to
one's delayed
arbitration.
until October.
Yeah, they have an arbitration hearing in October.
Okay. Just
I
making sure nothing
believe the
happened
fund
over
source is from the stabilization fund. Is that correct, John?
Free cash.
Is it free cash?
Yeah,
I believe it's free cash.
that's for cash.
For some reason, I had
No, I
stabilization
had that
fund.
too. Okay.
But free cash works. If we're gonna go for free cash, that's fine. Okay. Any discussion? Glad we have an agreement, before the next one comes up in a couple months. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? None? 7-0?
I make a motion that we accept Article 3 to see if the town will vote to amend the fiscal year 2019 operating budget adopted under Articles 4, 5, and 6 of the warrant for annual Springtown meeting in the amount of $33,681.
I'll second.
Discussion? This is the amendment for the second health inspector. And speaking with Paul and the previous meetings of John as well, and Mike, this is for the part-time through the end of the fiscal year, December to the end of the fiscal year. And this is factoring in the increased burden that may occur should Articles 22 and 23 be approved in the affirmative for additional inspections. And what frightened me was that there are 73 establishments that weren't inspected at all
Yes, that was a little frightening. wasn't
this
it?
year. So that was concerning.
I want a list to know where to go to eat.
Yeah. Which ones weren't inspected?
to
'Cause I'm
go
not
to eat,
going
yeah.
there, yeah.
And can I say something? I think I've been the liaison to the health department for the last 2 years, 3
Yes.
years. And this is not something new. I mean, they have brought this up repeatedly in the last 2 to 3 years, that they are understaffed.
Mhm.
And they cannot get to all the establishments. So, this is not like out of the blue, we need to add more headcount. It has been a problem for a while. And there's also, they do generate revenue, by going out there and doing this,
Mhm.
right? I mean, not a lot, but there is, I've talked, to Susan, and there is an opportunity, to increase the fees, to increase,
Yeah.
and that's not reflected in this ask. We don't see that.
Right.
This is the headcount for it, so.
And then this is, especially if Articles 22 and 23 get passed, this is absolute necessity. I feel it's an absolute necessity already.
No, I agree with you, and I think you're right, that if the other two articles pass, it's gonna be,
I think it's a necessity regardless of.
I think it's a
what the two-
necessity regardless, but I think.
Well, yeah, 73.
I think
73 is a big number.
73 is a
That's
big
a
number,
large number.
but if you add in the other two amendments, now what are we talking?
Yeah,
Now
no.
73 turns to what, 100?
Mm-hmm.
Don't say that. So I think this one's a no-brainer.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Any nays or abstentions? None? 7-0? Article 4?
Article 4, I make a motion that we accept Article 4 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate, transfer from available funds $116,360 for personnel, $392,296 for expenses, and $985,000 for equipment to operate the stormwater management enterprise.
I'll second.
Discussion? So the total is 508,656 for the
508 for the operations.
personnel expenses, the
Yeah,
operation, and
900,
985 for the office build-out.
yeah.
And this represents I think, and speaking with Steve and speaking with Gary that night that they came in the first night, they said this reflects what was agreed upon, the adjusted down numbers.
Those are the adjusted down numbers?
Yeah, so initially the amount was I think they were asking for 2.4 million or something in the initial article that night, and then there are multiple trucks and vehicles and staff that were taken out of that in an amendment to the article that evening in order to recognize that. This is also for a portion, I believe, of the implementation, and this will in fact go up because this is going to be funded primarily through the sewer enterprise and the fees that are going to be associated with.
When they were here, did they say what the amount, I read the notes and it said that it would start being assessed pretty
Yeah.
quickly, but it didn't say what the fee to the individual taxpayer was gonna be.
Is it
Oh, I
$40?
thought it was, yeah, I'm trying to look for my presentation, because I wrote it down.
Yeah, I did too, and I'm not seeing
And
it
it was
here.
gonna go up.
Unfortunately, it's gonna be inflated because this is only for 6 months. So if you look at in the presentation, page 14 on the first night, for Article 4, it was 6 months and 6 months for the GIS and the stormwater engineer, and the foreman, equipment operator, and the drivers and laborers were only 3 months of funding.
So it's like there was a false sense of.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lower amount initially, because of that, and it's gonna be a sewer fee. It's gonna be supporting this, but it's, again, an unfunded mandate. Gee.
Yeah, we're saving the environment, remember?
Yeah.
That this year.
Yes.
A lot of that this year, yeah. That seems to be the theme. Last one was marijuana, right? This time it's saving the environment. So we're getting high and we're saving the
Green.
environment.
High and green all at the same time.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't have that number. I believe it was,
I
I believe it was
was looking
40. 40 seems to be sticking in my head, but I think initially it was lower than that. But it was every 6 months is the fee that.
Yeah, so that's a lot.
It's not gonna be cheap, but we don't,
We don't
I
have
hate
a
to say it,
choice.
we really don't have a choice. The litigation still technically is there in Lowell, but, I mean, I don't know, this is an uphill battle we won't win, unfortunately. We have to have the staff there put in place, we have to put the vehicles in the build-out in place. It's a requirement that we have to meet, and we're gonna be fined if we don't. It's the agreed-upon reduced numbers in vehicles. I mean, like, the big one that was there was the vac truck that was gonna reduce costs significantly. It was on the initial. It's not here now. That's one of the vehicles that was taken out of the list of vehicles. The office build-out, I mean, that has to occur. Anyone who's been over the DPW knows that. Yeah, I see no other way than to support this. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? None, 7-0.
Make a motion that we accept Article 5 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available sums of money, $85,000, for the creation of an ad hoc public safety study committee for the purpose of hiring a consultant to examine whether the town should establish a municipal emergency ambulance service and whether the town should consolidate its fire stations or act in relation thereto.
I'll second.
Discussion?
So, based on my notes, the 85,000 is the max cost. It could very well come under, correct? That's what Chief Ryan said.
The $85,000
Was the max that the research, that the,
is the max they're requesting currently. It's not to say they won't come back for more.
okay.
Do we have quotes on this?
No, I haven't seen any quotes. Have you seen any quotes? I haven't seen any official documentation to show us
No,
what
he
this is
said that-
actually gonna cost.
He said Emily spearheaded the research and that this was gonna be the max
But I haven't
cost.
seen any documents or
No, I haven't seen
references
anything.
or anything like that to
No.
what the actual cost is gonna be. And that's my concern.
You know, Gary's not here tonight. Okay.
What's your question? You can ask us. I don't know who else you'd ask.
No, I just,
My interpretation of when he was here, although I didn't see any, Chairman Diggs said 85,000, they thought that was, I got the impression that they thought that it could possibly cost less than that, but they were gonna ask for 85 to cover their,
So that was the impression that was given. However, the discussion was that these studies sometimes cost more, and there was no discussion as to a concrete number that's been given to them for the actual study that they're willing to go into. Just the discussion that Selectman Emily Antul has reached out and talked to people, and she feels that these are the accurate numbers that would reflect what would be required to do this. I haven't seen anything that shows that. It feels a lot like the ask for the 101 Mill Road study, where they came in and asked
Oh,
for
yes,
extra
yeah,
money.
yes.
but everybody was like, well,
I feel like that we're gonna have that same kind of discussion at town meeting. It's, okay, but where is that number coming from, and how is
why
it
does it-
supported?
right, and
Because
what
the
does it
school
come
study was supported by actual information as to what the cost was gonna
They actually
be.
got a quote. They got
They got a
multiple
quote for
quotes.
it, yeah.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
and to be quite honest, I have, you know, I do this all the time. Like, I have this, like, you need to dot your i's, cross your t's, and so, and I don't, you know, even the school study, right? It was very clear what the ask was, what we're gonna have them do, though
Right.
some people would argue at town meeting that wasn't clear, but
Well, yeah.
I was there, and I remember distinctly, you know, Dr.
No, it was
Lang
very
had it
specific.
very, very specific.
Mhm.
And the parameters of the study was specific.
And they
Yes.
had quotes, and I agree with you, I think this is gonna be another,
I think it's premature, if at all, because we don't have that supporting information.
and while I think it's prudent to go and do something like this, I
Mhm.
don't disagree with the theory behind it.
Mhm.
You know, and if they wanna include the ambulance study, we have a study from 2 years ago. Like, I would, you know, go, okay, this is the study that was done, update these numbers, right? Like, I wouldn't go full-blown, let's go do another study, cause that to me.
wasn't that study 10 years?
10 years
Ten-
ago.
sorry,
10 years ago, not 2
10
years
Yeah,
ago.
so things have, I mean.
I
would
mean,
just
things
say-
have changed, certainly.
Right,
10
but
years
you-
is-
But you have an update to it, not go recreate the wheel, right? Like, they're numbers. So I would like it, you know, clearly defined of what the ask is and what the quote is. And I just don't think we're at a position now to support an $85,000 number without it more clearly defined.
Well, is the alternative, if you don't vote for the 85,000, then they get no money,
Yeah, it's one or the other unless it's amended at town meeting.
okay? And that would be pretty bad situation in the sense, because the issue of closing a fire station is a very serious issue.
Right.
And requires, I think, some outside help
I agree.
on
I
that
completely
portion.
agree with you,
Okay,
Dave.
well,
Yeah.
let-
Okay,
hold on, let's
and I
finish this.
think 10 years is been quite a long time on the ambulance. I think that's a public safety issue. I think it's a high cost, at least in, and there are other issues like response time, whole bunch of other things that I think that the study is very important, okay? I think it's very important.
I don't disagree with you, Dave. I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I think that in order for the town as a whole to make the decision on what to do going forward, because of the outcome of the arbitration last year, or earlier this year, that a study has to be done. But I am also, in agreement with the fact that I feel like we didn't get enough information. That I didn't feel like we were told, okay, yes, we went out for bids and this is what what people told us it's gonna cost exactly, and this is what we're gonna get for that $85,000.
They can't go out for bids if they don't have the
Sorry, I'm
money
sorry,
to do it.
quotes, excuse
Yeah.
me. We went and we got some quotes, and this is what we're getting for it. I just feel like I didn't get enough information.
It's a cart before the horse type of issue, where you
Yeah.
could certainly form this type of committee, and they can determine what their needs are, and as far as information is concerned, that they can't put together themselves
Right.
without a consultant, and they can come back and say the Springtown meeting or next fall town meeting for an ask on actual numbers that they've looked for, researched, and have for us. But my concern is we don't have those actual numbers, and we're just giving a blank check saying, don't spend more than $85,000, but you have that up to that to spend. That's my concern. I want to see concrete numbers before, and what the money's going to be used for, and why, before I give the money.
I totally agree. And again, I totally agree with you, Dave,
Especially-
that this is very important. And I'm, if we need 150, then we should invest 150.
Right.
But if anybody came to my office and
When-
asked me for an ask like this without doing their homework and giving me some basis of what it included, what their estimate was, who they got, ideas from, this was similar to this is what it ran, I would be like, go do your homework and come back to me.
So I don't think, and this is my view, and I think that's what we're all saying, is that voting no on this doesn't mean we don't want to do a study.
Right.
Correct.
It simply means that we need more additional information on scope, intent,
Yeah.
an actual firmer number.
Right, yeah.
So it's not a no forever, it's
No,
a,
it's a come back.
it's a
to it.
revisit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I am
Oh,
totally for
okay,
it.
but for a second, understand that we therefore delay any closing of a fire station. You can't, if you don't do the study, you can't close the fire station.
Well, that's not true, but.
Well, we can debate that forever, I
Yeah.
guess, but certainly, if we want to be fair about things,
Right.
okay, they've asked for money to study whether to close the fire station makes sense or not. The alternative is you have to leave it open, okay? And they've asked money to do a study on the ambulances, and, I don't know that 85,000 for the two of them, I get the point. Could be more money, could be less. We don't have enough information. But to delay it until spring town meeting is really to push that thing out.
Well, it'll push out 6 months.
Well,
But,
that's 6 months.
but my other comment on that is, so say the 85 does come, and the 85 is not sufficient to proceed with the study, we actually need more money than the $85,000. You go back to town meeting and ask for more money on a study that already has been funded by $85,000. Have you done that before? Because I've seen it tried before. It's not a pretty discussion. I don't think a 6-month delay is so much to ask to have a little bit more clarity as to what's being sought.
I'm going to admit to not having seen the discussion at the selectmen. I'm based on just what was presented to us. I don't know if anyone else heard more or got more details from the selectmen meeting, or I do see we have members in the audience. Oh, I wonder if we could just ask if there was any additional material that we did not see. Is that an appropriate question?
That's an appropriate question. All right, you can both come up. I'm fine with that.
Contrary to popular belief, we're a friendly crowd.
We're one of the friendlier crowds.
Maybe I can give you some background to help you understand this. It is correct that Emily did most of the evaluation on this. And the number was arrived at, and I feel it was in a similar way to the money that was given to the Economic Development Commission for their hiring a consultant to do a branding marketing program that one of their members reached out in a similar way and tried to get an idea of the cost. Now, part of getting the exact number is that you would need to form a committee to come up with exactly what you want this consultant to do. We want them to investigate this, we want them to investigate this, we don't want them to go into this area, we don't want them to go in this area. So the idea was that you can't form this committee if you don't have a commitment of the money, because what's the heck of the meeting for? So that was the idea of it. And Emily did a lot of work. She talked to numerous companies, and they all gave her basically the same number, somewhere between $75,000 and $85,000. And the feeling was that we did not want to make it so that we had to come back again and say, well, we gave you the low number, we really knew it was gonna be more, but to get it through, we gave you a small number. We didn't feel that was the appropriate thing to do. We felt that we should give you the number that was given as probably the right number, and that's how it came about. And we felt it was consistent with what was asked before, that, there was nothing wrong in that, and that there will be a final number. It will be a bid basis, it will go out to bid, and there'll be a list of requirements of what these companies are gonna do. And we felt that it was, based on her analysis, this was the appropriate number.
So the analysis that she requested from these people, was there a set of parameters that were given to each company of what was required and what was needed in order to proceed with the study, what was expected of these people, and were there any sort of written sort of responses that were provided or any sort of information about what companies actually responded to this?
No, it was done from the standpoint of, these companies are very professional companies, they have done these same kind of studies for other towns, and that when they have done them for other towns, this was the appropriate cost that they came up to do them.
So-
Originally, we put in the same bundle, when we originally talked about it, there was originally the fact of putting out to put up the question as far as the dispatch, but we felt that the dispatch could be dealt with within the committee, the Board of Selectmen itself. And we did a long process of that, and in the end, we decided it should stay where it is for the present time. But the other two issues, we need professional expertise. We don't have that qualitative ability to do that. Yes, we have the fire chief. We have professionals in the fire union who have a concept of exactly what this takes. We have, people that have accounting expertise on this board, and we would hope someone with a financial background from this group would be part of that analysis, because it is data-driven. And that's what it's going to come down to. No one is questioning the performance of the ambulance service. No one is questioning the performance or the response times of the fire department. The question comes down to, can the town afford to continue on this track, and is there some savings? It's strictly a money issue. So it's data-driven. It requires a lot of expertise. Closing a fire station, the emotions in this town of closing a fire station are going to make the chicken issue look like nothing, right? That's the kind of emotion that it brings to the table. And you're going to need quality professionals to come in and do that. And from Emily's analysis, and she talked to a number of companies and they expended hours on this, it came down to...
Glenn, I guess my question stands. Do we know who those companies were, and do we know what towns they worked with?
I don't. I didn't do the
So
analysis.
to go a little more into the detail, because I had some conversations with Emily on that, what she did is she looked at, I think it was about 11 or 12 towns in the general area, talked to them, who they used, looked at who in that market scope, marketplace does a lot of this, reached out to a bunch of them, asked them, if we did everything, what's the max cost? And that's how she arrived at that 85, understanding that the committee's probably not going to come back and want the full menu, soup to nuts. So we knew 85 was the high number. But as Glenn said, when you look at, if the question's close one fire station, close two fire stations, there are companies, we need the expertise to say, well, where would you have your remaining 2 or 3 fire stations?
And
you
maybe
need
build a
that-
new station, because those 2 that are remaining, they're in the wrong place.
Right. So
But
we need,
for
but
the
that,
next 20 years, you'll be ahead of the game at the end if you do this. But it's going to require a lot of work. It's no different than the school department saying, okay, we want to buy pods. Okay, give us $7 million. Well, they did it for a lot less than that. But they assumed that was the maximum that it was going to cost.
so let me ask you this.
It was the same thing.
If at the, I understand what you're saying, there's no actual hard data where she said, here's the 11 companies, here's their spreadsheets of what they gave us, right? If that could be presented, would there be?
I'd like to understand what she asked them, because my gut, and I honestly don't have anything to really back this up, other than the comparison of how much the school analysis looked. This is a pretty, to get a quality analysis, I just think 85,000 is just not enough. If what you're saying is what you want to do,
If it was just one or just the other, maybe.
Maybe.
But both, I can't,
like, to
I
me,
mean,
my gut, and again, I can't.
Well, I think it comes down to this, that your group has a vote on whether or not you endorse it or not.
mhm.
The Board of Selectmen have a vote on whether we endorse it or not. Ultimately, it's still going in front of town
Town
meeting.
Mhm.
And at that point, I'm sure Emily will take the podium and explain it in detail, and they will make the final decision.
So let me ask you, before you make your vote to endorse it or not, are you gonna get to see all that data that we're asking for?
We have heard from Emily at numerous meetings, not consistently, but pieces along the way. And from everything that I've heard, I think it's a reasonable number.
But heard, you haven't seen anything.
Correct.
No, but I know the detail of what she's put into it.
But
Okay.
we haven't heard from her.
But you have not.
Yeah.
We haven't
No,
heard
we
from her,
haven't,
we
yeah.
haven't seen
But,
anything.
you know, I would assume that, based on, show me the cards, that at town meeting, she will be very prepared to do that.
Okay,
Oh, I'm
Make
a
sense?
town meeting rep, I may.
me
vote
too.
differently at
Yeah.
town meeting.
Yep.
Oh, I do that all the time.
Yeah, me too.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you
guys.
for clarification. So my concerns still stand.
And my concerns remain the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can take it to vote then.
I would just say one thing, that we were talking about the delay. I guess I should have asked when they thought they would have they wouldn't have the answer before the budget is being prepared for the spring
Okay.
town meeting anyway, right?
No.
So it's not, the town would be continuing on its current course, which would, to the best of our knowledge.
We start budget review in January, we're meeting in Tri-Board in December.
So, but I mean, as far as the fire station, because that was the,
No, this is like an 18-month study, I think. Like, did they?
Yeah.
the
right,
process
but what
is
I'm
like
saying
18
as
months.
far as our
Yeah.
instant situation,
Right.
the expenses for having the current number of fire stations under the
Oh, I see what
current
you're saying. Right.
union contract is going to remain constant with this budget system. So they're not gonna be saving any money on this budget year,
No,
No.
one way or the other.
no.
And we're gonna have to be able to figure out a way to meet that,
Mhm.
Yeah,
requirement.
and most likely not even, if we're.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but this is not a great free cash year. Let's be honest on that, too. We still have an outstanding contract that's being arbitrated. And we don't have a whole lot of funds to throw around. We're down again from last year. Last year, we were at 1.4. Now we're at, what, 9?
9 something.
I something.
Yeah, I
900
mean,
and, I wrote it down, 900 and 700,000 something.
yeah. It's, I don't know.
Jim, let me ask you something. Would this be one of, like, you know how we delayed vote on an article before town meeting to hear from someone? Is this something, if Emily's willing to come talk to us before town meeting like we did in the spring, you know, down in the basement?
I mean, we can certainly do that. It's just,
I mean, if she's gonna be prepared to speak at town meeting and give this information to the town meeting reps, then a half hour or an hour before town meeting, she could give it to us, and then we could vote with all the information available.
yeah, so our book goes to publish next week.
But I mean, we did this in the spring.
No, I know, I'm just laying out the timeline here. Our book goes to publish next week, because we're required to have it out two weeks prior to town meeting, which means we're 3 weeks away from town meeting right now. We could certainly hold off a vote on that. Just to bolster that, there's also, I heard from, I think it was today or yesterday, from Paul, that there's going to be a special town meeting on an additional zoning article that just came to the town's attention. And that'll be held probably the 18th of October during town meeting, probably prior to the restarting of town meeting for that evening, which we will more than likely want to at least review to see whether or not we should take a vote or recommendation on it. And that obviously will not be available for our discussion prior to issuing our recommendations in the book for this town meeting.
And
We can put it off. I'm not sure if we'll get the answer we want.
No, but I think if there's a, if
The
there's a
possibility, I
chance-
guess.
Right, if there's a possibility that we could get the information that's holding us back from voting in the affirmative,
Mm-hmm.
then I say that we give it a try.
Yeah, and
I don't like voting on something when there's potentially information out there that I don't have.
I agree.
I agree, but I get a feel, I'm
But
concerned that
I
this is
understand
not
your
enough
concern,
money.
but I feel like I can't vote either way right now, because
That's
I
fine.
don't have enough information. Now, if it turns out the information doesn't exist, then I can vote. But I feel like right now, I'm hearing like it does exist, and we
Mhm.
just don't have it.
In the, as far as the argument or proposal to postpone it, I was thinking that we would also need to postpone voting on that zoning article that they haven't even made their public hearing on. Yeah,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true.
so there would
So
be
if we're
another,
delaying one,
Yeah, but
we're gonna have
what
to
are we
meet
gonna-
before town
What are
meeting.
we gonna come in, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
well, like 5:36.
That's what-
Hey, maybe you can. I won't be running that meeting.
Yeah.
But we're still in open discussion period. We can table that motion, we can bring a new motion, we can vote on this motion.
I don't know, this has been out there for a while, like, we've had multiple discussions with it, while I think it's important to do the study, I am full force about bringing in somebody,
Mhm.
I don't think it's been clearly defined what we're doing, and quite frankly, this is, I don't think it's enough money for it to begin with, I just don't have the confidence of it, and I don't think I'm gonna get that.
If you get the information.
I don't, yeah,
Okay.
Again, I kinda, we've had, how many meetings already that this could have come forward?
Well, can I come at it a little different way, just for a second?
Sure.
I mean, are we in agreement that there should be a study?
Yes, I think we're
Yes.
all in agreement there should be a study.
Okay, so the agreement isn't whether, the issue isn't whether there should or shouldn't be a study. It's we don't have enough detail on what comprises the study and what it's gonna
I
cost.
think that
Exactly.
the study itself and what's actually being looked at needs to be more accurately defined.
And where the money's going.
Yeah, I
and-
think it's
Well,
very general.
We also need more information on the amounts that are gonna be spent and what they are going to be earmarked for.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think we all agree that
Looking
the
at
study
scope,
has
yeah,
to
we don't have
happen.
scope, we don't have, explanation. It's very vague.
well, they
Maybe it's
could,
intentionally vague.
yeah,
but it's-
they could technically start their committee, and the committee could pull together a more finite proposal on what the consultant would cost.
Which is my position. I think Springtown meeting's fine for another ask.
So why can't the selectmen have, why do they need a committee? Couldn't they define this, I'm just thinking like the school committee, when they went and got their proposals and kind of did all of that, they didn't form a committee. Did they form a committee to go? The school committee decided what the proposal was, right? Like, couldn't the selectmen decide on the scope? No?
They could.
Why do we have to wait for a committee to be formed?
I think the selectmen can do whatever they want to do. It's just a.
Well, within reason.
Would you like to, me to withdraw my motion in the positive, or would you like to take a vote, Mr. Chairman?
Is everyone prepared to vote?
I'm not happy
Well, we
about
can,
it.
we
You're
could,
not
we
happy
could
about
poll, we could poll
I
without.
mean, no, I'll be honest with you,
without a-
I really feel if there's, I just feel like we're voting without potentially all the facts.
I think,
And while you think the facts might be completely irrelevant to your argument, I still think we need to have all the facts.
Well, there's 2 steps. You withdraw and we decide to table and wait,
Mm-hmm.
see how that goes. And depending on how that vote goes, then we vote yes or no on
Yeah,
the warrant.
I think that's probably the prudent.
No, I think we-
I agree with,
So, okay, we'll table the vote, we'll table the vote on the current motion. We'll take a vote as to whether or not to continue with the motion or to bring it up at a extended town meeting, extended meeting prior to town meeting. So I guess that would be the motion.
so I withdraw my previous motion.
Table.
I table my previous motion.
And then you bring a motion to, the second note, so the second motion would be whether or not, I guess you have to tailor it, so it would say a motion to
Table until.
table until a meeting prior to the initial day of town meeting.
I make a motion to table my previous motion until we meet prior to town meeting on October, whatever the date is.
October, is it 15th?
Yes.
I second.
Your birthday,
My
that's right.
birthday.
Yes. There's a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Tabling
Tabling it
until
until
prior to
before
town meeting,
town
the date, prior to town meeting, the day of town meeting.
So we're tabling this and
We're-
not.
was fun.
We're voting to table the motion on the article for recommendation until prior to town meeting.
Okay, then I'm a nay on that one.
Okay.
She's a nay, so 6-1.
It's 6-1.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jim, just to be clear, you're tabling it because you want more backup data on the numbers.
Correct. We want, well, both backup information on that and also a
Like
clear
to
understanding of
tell.
what the scope is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we want the committee to define the scope.
Okay, well then,
Then,
that'll tailor my vote that day.
I just want to
Yep.
be clear what we,
The meeting before town meeting, all the meetings.
Yes, we just voted to have a
We're gonna
meeting
have one
before
the
town
night
meeting, on
of
the night
town meeting.
Is that the only one?
That is the only one. Our book is due next week. We have a two-week requirement to produce our book. We will
Right,
not have
I
a
know
meeting
you
prior
have-
to that.
I know you have to produce the book, but are you having any more meetings after that?
There would be
So that She
no,
would not, she would come in ahead of time and present it to you, so we didn't have it, 5 seconds, you had to decide what you're gonna do.
I mean, we can certainly do that. However, our normal practice has been to have it the day of, so that we're not
We
taking.
can have the same kind of meeting, sometimes there's no numbers,
Yep.
and the number won't be there till the day of town meeting.
Right.
And that's why we're putting off until the day of town meeting.
All right, we'll have,
Yep.
you just let us know what time it's good.
Okay. All right, Article 6.
Article 6, I would make a motion that we accept Article 6 to see if the town will vote to raise $30,000 from available funds to support the operations of the Chelmsford Center of the Arts, Town Hall, and the Chelmsford Community Center at North Town Hall.
Yeah, can I confirm that the North Town Hall has been removed from this article? I thought it was removed from this article.
Okay.
So why is it in the warrant that was published?
I believe the warrant was initially written before, and then there was,
So I understand.
there was a
Thank you.
discussion with.
Thank you.
I know,
Thanks,
I
John.
have a number of 20. Is it
No, it's 30.
It's 30.
Okay.
30.
There's a presentation earlier this evening
Okay.
by Donald Van Dyne, the chair, Kit Harbison, one of the volunteers and one of the leaders of the 501c3, and Susan Gates, the executive director.
32. No, it's 30.
It's 30.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, thank you.
so basically, the synopsis was, do we have a second on that motion, by the way?
Not yet.
Oh, second.
Thank you.
Sorry. My bad.
Discussion? The discussion earlier was that Susan was away out of town until after the number had been set, the recommended number had been set at $30,000. Her ask would have been higher, she said, but she didn't give us a number that she would have asked for. She wanted a little more for marketing and to fill that position for that technical director. So the number stands at 30. That's the recommended amount. That's the amount we'd be voting on this evening. And it's only for the CCA, not for the North Town Hall.
Right.
Although the article is written otherwise.
I missed the discussion because I wasn't here.
Mhm.
And I have the same, and when I was, reviewing these, I originally had the same concern that I did with the prior article, what the scope and where the money was being spent.
Oh, so we asked about that. So
Yes,
Does
we-
that get
Yeah.
answered? I've got
No,
something
I
here.
put him in front of her.
Okay.
So I can let you know, just based on my notes. We asked her about, the money. She wants the 30,000 for a technical director. Right now, she is fully volunteer.
Oh, I know, and she
Right.
does a wonderful
So,
job, I mean, like,
but
this
she
woman
does a job
spends
of like 5 people.
Yes.
So she just can sustain that. And so she needs a technical director who will run all the shows. It would be a part-time 20 hours, at about $32,000. And our concern was, how is that sustainable? That if
Right.
we give you this money, how are you not gonna come back every year?
Which I believe is a very valid concern.
It was a very valid concern. And then what they said, and then the other thing I said was, you also, in order to increase revenue, and Jim asked this as well, you need to increase your marketing. So how are you gonna pay for marketing if you're paying for, with the
Right.
30,000 you're paying for a guy? And she said that they have a 501c3.
501c3.
501c3, thank you. numbers and letters. That's, like, kind of like Friends of the Library. It's Friends of the CCA, and they do grants, and it's for marketing and that sort of stuff. It won't go towards salary.
And I wish I had asked this when she was here, and I neglected to. And if she did answer this, if anyone can recall, how long ago was this nonprofit established?
I didn't ask her, and she
Which-
didn't say. But she did say it's been for years, because they've got like 15 grand in the bank.
Yeah, she said that. That's 15 grand over how many years?
She says
And
they
why have-
raise about 10 to 15 a year.
She did, okay.
Yeah.
So they're already, the other concern is they're already spending that
Already
amount,
spending,
raising. She
right.
said she can increase the amount by 10 to 15.
She said she could increase it by another 10 to
So
15.
why aren't they currently doing that?
I don't know. And then, Donald said that, based on the increase of the marketing, the expectation is this year they'll be able to increase their revenue as well. And between the two could easily, if this happens, can easily cover the salary of the new person. Going forward. But that assumes all the
So a lot of assumptions in
dominoes align.
in a pretty stagnant expenditure, profit and loss statement.
But I think what they believe, they did say that some of their expenses would be reduced because.
Right, $24,000 is
Up to
paid
$24,000 is paid for
for
current.
for the technical
Yeah.
expertise that they have to bring in, which they wouldn't have to bring in because that would be absorbed by the new tech
They'd
director.
probably still have to take in some, because that person's not gonna work every weekend that they have something going on. My guess is there are gonna be times when they're gonna have to bring somebody else in to take care of that.
Possibly, so let's say out of the 24, say 20. 20,000 will be absorbed by the new tech director.
I think that well, I'll try to be succinct. I think taking money from free cash is a one-time event. Can't really be considered reoccurring because free cash
Isn't
could
It is by
evaporate.
definition not recurring.
Right. So I do believe that I'm going to be supportive of this. I think they've done an excellent job. I'm gonna hope that they can sustain it based on what they say. And I feel like if they can work on the marketing, that they'll be able to increase their revenues. But I think they have been a great asset to the community, and, you know,
Well,
I think they deserve,
I'm
I'm
in
happy
agreement
to,
with Kathy.
I'm happy to
Yeah.
say yes for the 30,000 and
think it's
believe that they know they really can't come back to free cash on a regular
I think this is
basis.
the ultimate one-time test to see whether or not they're actually sustainable based upon
Right.
this.
Because we don't want it to go away.
This infusion of 30, oh, no, we don't. It's a great service. They've increased it steadily over the years, and it provides a lot for the town. I'm hoping the marketing, I'm sad to see that they're using so much on paper marketing in the newspaper. I can't remember the last time I purchased one. But if they believe, if Donald's confident in the numbers that they can raise in marketing, and they can do more grant writing and reduce the cost of tech, it's possible that they'll be able to keep this as a sustainable position without that, and that they need this one-time, no strings attached loan of $30,000 to kind of kickstart it. But this is not sustainable. We can't, we have so many more asks across the board. This is a, I hope
Has to be a
they
one-time
understand, this is a one-time deal. We can't keep this. And the other thing that concerns me is it is gonna be a town employee, because it is a town entity. And she said, well, you know, that's the way that we have this organized. It is a town property, it's a town entity, it's an appointed board, appointed executive director. It's unlike any other kind of, and that's why I asked, any other kind of setup in other towns, where it is just a 501c3, or it is a facility that's rented out and managed by somebody else. I mean, yeah, you lose some of the personal, maybe some of the personal touch, but our golf course, our forum, those are all management companies. They're operating at net zero or plus positive revenue per year, and they're managed, and they're self-sustaining, and there's no ask that's coming really from the town. It's just it's a fund that's being used, and it's being approached, and we aren't spending more money and throwing it towards it. So that's my concern. I mean, yes, 30,000. They do a great job. I'm okay with it. I don't want to see it coming back.
I have a question. We can ask people specific questions that were not.
A specific question to
Because the
clarify,
assistant town
yes.
manager wasn't in the room when we were talking about this, but he is now. we had brought it up.
Mike, if you don't.
Do you mind coming up?
I'm just here.
Oh, okay, sorry. No, I looked over, somebody must have been in front of you.
You can
But-
blame Paul for coming up right now.
No, I was just curious, we know it's gonna be an employee of the town, but is it gonna be an employee with benefits of 20 hours? Because there was some confusion when we were talking.
I believe we would have to make it 19 or less to avoid certain, I back up Gene Parziale with regard to HR issues, but I think the way the law is written, we want to structure it as a 19 or 19 and a half and below.
So
because
it's
I
not
think-
20 and below, it's under 20.
I think it has to be under 20, otherwise you're obligated for certain types of things, certain
Health
time
benefits,
off,
time
different
off,
things, yeah,
yeah.
Right.
so.
Yeah, I was pretty sure that was the.
Yeah, I just wanted
And Donald seemed to think
clarification.
that was
Donald did,
yeah.
but Susan wasn't sure, so I just wanted to make sure that we got clarification on that.
Yeah.
Because that was a no one, was
So,
contrary.
so
I
in
think
that,
what we
in that instance, if that, and I believe you are correct.
Yep.
It's a 20 hour and above, not 20 hours below.
Right.
Susan's understanding is correct.
Mhm.
Susan was saying that no, she thought it was a position that had certain
Right.
benefits to it that weren't included in that. But I think she clarified by saying that the
No,
32.
she said the 32 includes
figure
it.
included any calculated benefits that might be associated with that position.
What I would anticipate is if this dollar amount is approved, the HR director would then, with Susan, craft a job description, and we would set forth at that time the hours, and we would
Okay.
make a determination what the cutoff point was to minimize our exposure for certain types of health benefits.
And-
There
and
shouldn't be any,
retirement
but
stuff.
things
Yeah.
of
Right,
that nature.
okay.
Yeah, especially if
I'm
this
just
is a
thinking,
position which
I
may
just
not
keep
be
thinking
sustainable.
OPEB numbers in my head.
Is there a way to split the money so that you've got two temps, so,
I mean,
under
that's-
under
I
20
think
hours?
once you have the appropriation, then you can look at those things.
So they're looking at the appropriation, they've told us what they're going to spend it on, and they've given us the information that we requested, the information regarding what they would spend it on, how they would spend it, what their actuals were, what their expenses were. I really appreciate that, because that's what I'm looking for on other things when they're presented to us for recommendation.
Yeah.
I'm looking for actual numbers. So, yeah, no, that clarifies a lot. Thanks, Mike, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, I appreciate
Don't
it.
worry, I'll be in the back row.
Okay.
This is, Sue's done a phenomenal job, and she has
Yeah.
dedicated so much time.
Mhm.
I wish this could be a budget, I wish we
Yeah.
could give them something.
Well, anyone who's
I mean,
watching from home that would like to send them a donation, I guess they'd take it.
Yes.
Oh, that would certainly take it.
I hear you.
Or they want to go to a paying
Really good
event.
marketing, Kathy, I like that.
Yes, there's,
Okay.
this
I
is one
think,
of the assets of our town.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I just think, I feel bad that we can't have that. as
Fund
part-
them
Fund them,
fully,
we need
yes.
something, something.
But we can't, I mean,
I mean, the town has certainly helped out in the past with certain things too, though. And there have been other things that have helped the facility as well, including the new equipment that was put in from the Chelmsford Telemedia just this past the previous town meeting or 2 town meetings ago. They needed improved equipment in the facility, and it was a move from their fund. It was approved. So it's not that the town has completely neglected this property and neglected the CCA, but it was established as a self-sustaining facility, because in other towns, it is, or it's rented and managed, or it's a 501c3 that owns the property.
Right.
So this is a unique situation, it's a unique entity. I'm going to vote in favor of this, but if it comes back again, I can't see saying, oh yeah, we'll do it again next year.
Yeah,
no, I agree, I'll vote in favor, but not a second time, yeah.
I think just during the conversation or the presentation earlier, I probably switched my vote in my mind 6 times. I think what kind of pushed it over to stay in the yes category for me was, again, we don't know the exact number, but whether it's 24 grand or 20 grand or 18 grand, they wouldn't have to fundraise an additional 30.
Yep.
It's
Right.
half that, less than that.
Yep.
But I, not to commit to future obligations, but I cannot see doing this again beyond this one-time ask. So I think we're all, I'm in line.
Any further discussion?
Well, yeah, I would just you know, just as long as I get my 2 cents in, is,
Sure.
you know,
we
I
can
have
see it
severe
to midnight.
concerns about the ability to grow the revenue, but having said that, they've earned the right, in my opinion, to get this support this time, and we'll come back and see where we are a year from now. So,
Hopefully, we won't come back a year from now. All right, I think, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? None, 7-0.
Okay, Article 7, I make a motion,
Almost a third of the way through.
Article 7, I make a motion that we approve, that the town raise $3,000 to maintain town-owned conservation, agricultural, and open space lands that are supported by the volunteer efforts of the Chelmsford Open Space Stewards. $3,000,
I believe this is a transfer from free cash.
free cash. Yes, it is,
Yep,
free cash.
we saw Glenn come forward, but also we also had Phil come in and talk about this. I'm
yeah.
sorry, do we have a second?
Oh, I'll second.
Thank you. Continuing discussion. Yeah, he told us what he's gonna use it for. It's supplies.
It's supplies. He said it's
little
like
things.
nails and.
Nails and,
Hang on, I have
yeah,
it
a couple
written down.
shovels that they're currently paying for themselves.
Yeah, covers nails, oil, wood, parts, and paint.
You wrote them all down?
I did, I wrote it all
There you
down.
go.
Wow, you take good
Good,
notes.
that's great notes. Maybe we should vote you as a.
No, I'm
as-
good. Pam does a great job, you don't need anybody else.
No offense, Pam.
Oh, yeah, she's good.
Yeah, I can't see not supporting this. Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah, they do such good work in town.
All right.
Can we take a vote?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? None? 7-0. 8?
Before I read 8, I've got two numbers, I just wanna make sure I'm right. 27,500, I suppose that's the survey, and 10,000 for the planters, so a total of.
37.5.
37.5,
Yep.
all right, okay. I'd like to make a motion that we accept Article 8, for the town to take from free cash, 27,500 for field survey of Vinyl Square, and $10,000 to purchase and install portable tree planters in Vinyl Square.
Second?
Second it.
We have a second. Discussion? Ground field survey. This was one of those chicken before the egg type situations where we were talking about whether or not they should have the 10,000 for the portable planters before they did the survey, vice versa. And the discussion was that they wouldn't do the survey until certain things were done. And the survey's going to take a while to obtain, is from my notes.
Can I ask, I wasn't here for that, they talk about the crosswalks at all in that area?
That's
With
part
that
of the
survey?
Yeah,
Part
that's
of
part of
that.
that survey. It's to try to determine the best, the
Because if
best
you're-
placement of sidewalks, and I believe the crosswalks would be included in that survey.
Because if you're at the restaurant Tequila's and you wanna,
Stagger across to,
yeah, if you wanna stagger up and see the, what they've got in consignment corner, you might be risking your lives. I did that one afternoon, but anyway.
from
So-
tequilas to okay.
Yeah, so.
You want to tell us any more than
So,
that?
well, at least you didn't go from tequilas over the package store.
I did that on my way
Oh,
back.
In this, and correct me if I'm
That's a
wrong,
lot of
when we do the survey, then this is how we file.
In order, yeah, so when the ground field survey is complete, that'll help determine whether or not we can pursue funds from the state, or have the state institute changes to that, because it is a state road.
Right, and if they, because it's a state road, then if they do that, then isn't it, they have to put in sidewalks and all of that stuff, right? If I'm not mistaken, because that was.
They don't have to until we've done the survey.
Well, no, I know, but if they approve it and the state's doing it, like they're doing on the,
Well,
120.
Have to is a very strong word. Two very strong words.
Wasn't that the whole thing with the, corner over there of River Neck?
If it's a safety concern, then they have to address it. I'm fine with the planters. There needs to be more greenery there, but they can't put permanent placements in until the survey's been completed. because permanent would be better, but again, you can't, not gonna do that before you get the survey done. Final Square needs some TLC. There's been a lot of improvement. There could be a lot more. I'm in support of this. Any other discussion?
Why not?
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? None? 7-0.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we go on to the next one, can we take a quick bathroom break? I don't want to necessarily miss any discussion or.
No, I understand,
But we have a whole bunch more to get through.
Do I have a motion for a quick 5-minute recess?
Yeah, I make a motion for a quick 5-minute recess.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? 5-minute recess.
Thank you. It's been a long night.
Let's go.
This one's always a long night.
It's not over yet, my friend.
Okay, guys, it's 10:13, let's speed it up.
All right.
All right.
Next.
Call this meeting back to order. When we adjourned, we were at Article 8. We had just voted on Article 8. We were on Article 9.
So I will make a motion to accept Article 9 to see if the town will move, actually, before I start this,
Yes.
it's not coming from free cash, is it? It's being, this is the $5,000 has already been received from the state.
That is correct. So it's been received, and it's money that is required to be transferred and spent upon certain items. And I believe that the ask and the use of this is going to be for a crosswalk over on 129.
So I make a motion that we accept Article 9 as presented, moving the sum of $5,035.80 for the purposes outlined in the article.
My second.
Discussion?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
We have to transfer it over. It's required, and it's going to be used on that crosswalk. It's a good location. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none. 7-0. Article 10.
I make a motion that we accept Article 10 as written, authorizing the Board of Selectmen to acquire the land parcels outlined.
I'll second.
Discussion? I believe that the number of temporary and permanent easements, the permanent easements are not extraordinarily substantial based upon this review of the actual portions. I believe that discussions have already been had with a lot of these landowners regarding this, and it's for, remind me what it is for.
Remember they're redoing that 129?
Oh, yeah, the
Right,
safety
it was like-
improvements on the
Yeah.
129 curve, yeah, there, okay, yep.
And the temporary ones, what they say is like more for like the construction vehicles and.
Yeah, they
access,
pipes and
pipes
stuff like that, yeah, that's temporary.
Yeah.
And there's nominal to proportional consideration that's provided, that's worked out later
And he
based
said the
upon any
per- and
takings.
The permanent ones are small spots. He's like, it's like little, it's like a
Well, still a
corner
taking, so
here.
there'll be compensations
There'll be
provided.
compensation,
And
yeah.
the only, I mean, they'll craft as to how the take is going to occur. The only defense against that is that you weren't properly compensated, because at the end of the day, a municipality has the ability to take under eminent domain.
Yeah, but I also think that because it wasn't a lot, like, there wasn't anybody that were taking a big chunk.
No,
It's
no,
little
yeah.
pieces here and there that,
I mean,
from a property owner.
the
wasn't-
permanent easements total 16,266 square feet, and the temporary 15,200. So, all in all, with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there are like 17 different parcels stretched over. We're talking small portions of.
Small, yeah, but that was my only concern from a homeowner perspective.
Yeah,
Like
well, at the end of the
hitting
day,
it.
though, it's again,
I agree.
the only defense is not, the fair compensation has not been provided. I see no reason not to support this article. Any further discussion?
No.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7-0. Article 11.
No action on Article 11?
Yep,
Um,
that's what I have too.
The town manager has voted to take no action, chosen to take no action on Article 11. Yes.
Article 12?
Mm-hmm.
Make a motion that we accept Article 12, transfer from free cash $974,776 into the general stabilization fund.
Hold on a second.
So, wanna double check my number?
Yeah.
649.
I have 649, 199.
Yeah,
Oh.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just had a
Yes,
correction
please.
on that. Just wanted to correct that number. The original number that we gave, I believe in the first presentation, was 649, 199. I just need to correct that to 682,880, and the reason for that, it's an increase of 33,681. That number may sound familiar to you. As the town manager, I looked at the funding sources for these articles. It became apparent that since Article 3 is the Board of Health position, that's going to be an ongoing staff
okay.
position. So it'd be more fiscally prudent to fund that as a raise and appropriate from the tax levy rather than free cash, which you usually reserve for one-time uses. So that the number would be 682,880.
880 even.
Yes.
And that transfer is less the other asks for the from free cash, including the 85,000 under Article 5?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
There was the 900.
Yeah, I read that in the notes, I think. That's where I got my
But then
numbers.
there were a couple of deductions.
Oh,
from
I'm
that to
sorry.
get to the
Thank you.
649.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? So here's my position. If we vote not to support Article 5, that number will be increased further from the 682,880 to an additional number. We can certainly vote on that transfer number and amend our vote should we address Article 5. So we have really two options. We can put off this vote until the day before, or we can vote on the 682,880 and amend our vote should there be a change to the funding amount, or if we do not support Article 5 come October 15th. Either way is fine, but that would be the two ways we can approach that.
Well, if I might add to that, so even if the Finance Committee did not vote in favor of the 85,000, the town, all of town meeting could in fact vote in favor of it, so the number could possibly still stay at 682. It just because we don't vote for it doesn't mean.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I certainly understand that. But again, those are our two options.
I'd go with the 682 and amend it later.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
That'd be how I do it.
I agree.
Whatever you like.
Okay.
We just need to make sure we remember that.
Yeah. So on the agenda for that night, I'll make sure that I place on that agenda a review of Article 12 based upon further discussion of Article 5. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7-0.
I'd like to make a
Twelve.
motion that we accept Article 13.
13, sorry.
See if the town transfer 86,500 from the Golf Course Enterprise Fund, free cash, to reconstruct the 9th hole at the Chelmsford Country Club.
My second.
Discussion?
I like the presentation, it was nice.
Yeah, I mean, they were very, again, looking at even, they were very clear of what they were gonna do.
Very thorough.
Very thorough, they did their homework.
Yeah, yeah. The numbers were laid out for us.
Yep.
Well, the current fund balance is 119,265, and they're only accessing 86,612 of it. They operate within their means. They're not asking for additional funds. It's a separate enterprise fund that's being accessed for this, and it's a necessity what they want to do to both make the course more attractive and potentially more profitable, but also with Tingsboro closing, they're going to see an increase anyway in the amount of traffic they're going to have there. And as my brother told me after we had our meeting on the first night, he's on the varsity team for the golf at the high school. He said, "Yeah, it's about time. It's a terrible hole." Yeah, I see no reason not to support this. Any further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7-0. Article 14.
I make a motion that we accept Article 14 to see if the town will transfer $10,000 from the Cable Television Public Education Access Enterprise Fund, free cash, to purchase a utility trailer to haul equipment.
I I second.
Discussion? Yeah, I'm fine with this.
They have their own fund and they have their own money in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They do.
And this is.
Their free cash.
This is their free cash.
Free cash, 'cause I just have a number in here, and this is within their free cash.
It's a necessity that they've discovered. And at the risk of it being shut down, not recorded anymore, and I say, yes, I support this. No, no, but in all seriousness, yeah, it's, again, one of those no-brainer type things. Any further discussion? All's in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7-0. Article 15.
I make a motion that we accept Article 15, to see if the town will transfer $75,000 from the sale of graves and lots account to the Cemetery Improvement and Development Fund.
Second.
Discussion? Again, these are their own funds. That's the next step in the process. We heard about the process. It's going to take a couple of years to do. They may be back for 50. Did they say that they asked for 50K in the spring, or they're coming back in the spring for 50K? I'm trying to remember.
I wrote it generic, but I think it was they asked for it, past tense.
Yeah, so I thought so too. But I wrote the same. I heard the same exact thing. Yeah. I think I seem to recall that they did that. Yeah.
And also,
Past tense.
right, reading my notes, I think they're gonna improve the fence or the gate, which has been twice brought up to Capital Planning Committee and twice turned down. So they're gonna take care of it themselves, so that's good.
Yeah, roads, water lines, dry wells, catch basins, fine loam and seeding, all those things that need to be done anyway. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7-0. Article 16. From the zoning articles.
Yeah, so the no money amounts in the remaining articles. Make a motion that we accept Article 16 as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion? I'm glad they're defining flags.
Well, I'm glad we're taking the vagity out of the,
Vagueness.
yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's late.
It's display of flags of commercial properties.
Oh, yeah, you missed it.
Oh, was I missed that one?
You
Yeah,
missed that one.
one.
Okay.
Yeah. You missed all the zoning articles.
You missed all the articles.
All
You
the
came
fun
in a
ones,
public
Oh, I didn't
discussion.
see. Can I go home now? Am I done?
No, you're not done.
They're changing the wording to more specifically define what a flag is.
Okay.
And taking out the wording that says a commercial property can't have flags up for commercial promotion.
As
So
long
they
as
can, as long as it is a flag that is a symbol of a nation, a state, or an other government entity.
and it's attached at one edge to a pole.
Or a cord.
So it can't be wrapped around a car or something like
Right,
that.
right.
This thing just won't.
Unless it's wrapped around with a cord on one side.
And I'm sure someone will do that.
Thanks for putting that one in.
Yeah,
No
thanks a
problem.
lot, Amina.
I missed it.
Yeah, no, so, yeah, this doesn't make sense not to. It'll avoid a lot of consternation and the like. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? Hearing none.
No?
7-0. Article 17.
I make a motion that we approve Article 17, the animals and accessory to dwellings as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion.
You missed this
I
one too.
missed
This
this
was the
one.
chicken one.
I get that. I've been,
This will increase the amount of properties that are allowed to have 10 small animals weighing less than 25 pounds at maturity. Although the feeling from the planning board is that with the requirement that waste shall be contained at least 50 feet from any abutting lot line and/or water body, that this limits it to 15,000 and above square feet, and therefore it will not greatly increase the number of parcels that are allowed to carry such animals.
And then we were talking, even at the 15,000, it's gonna
It's
be
gonna be
really hard
tight, yeah.
to find.
so
to-
then
yeah.
why are they even presenting this?
Because they're clarifying.
Because it
there's
used
no
to be
current-
40,000 feet. And so there's a lot of people in town who have chickens that are illegal. And so by reducing it from the 40,000 square feet to the 15,000 square feet, a lot more people can have chickens in their yard.
And the question was how they would regulate it, and I said Popeyes.
KFC, Boston Market.
I mean, I don't know, 2,000 square feet, you put a house on it, that's not a lot of room for chickens.
No, it's not a lot of room for chickens.
And, you know.
But you also, but think about it, so the other rule is that the refuse from the chickens has to be put, or any game bird, has to be placed 50 feet from permanent water or a property line. So you gotta kinda, do the math, and it's gonna, there's a little sweet spot.
I mean, this could be little pigs less than 25 pounds too, majority, like
That's-
guinea
that's
pigs.
true, yeah.
You get 10 pigs in the backyard squealing all the time.
I'm
Be grateful
sorry,
for
I'm
your
gonna
neighbors having
be
chickens
old
at that
school,
point.
and I'm gonna vote no against this because I just,
I would
that's
agree.
just my, that's just
Think
my
about
personal.
being new school, because
Right.
you don't want the farm animals in town.
Yeah, that would be old school
Whatever,
if you wanted the
I'm
farm
gonna
animals.
be, I'm gonna say no to the chickens unless you have the acre lot or whatever. I'm saying no, that's my,
I would agree with the no. It's hard not to be colored by the discussion at both the planning board and the board of selectmen meeting.
Or the Board of Health.
Or the Board of Health. I didn't watch that one, but it's probably a repeat of the other two that I did watch.
Mhm.
But even outside of that, a third of an acre just seems pretty small to have 10 chickens, so.
And here's the thing, right, there are plenty of farms that you can go and become like that. You can
Look at
pay-
those CCA things,
Yeah,
right?
and get your eggs and stuff like that, so there's opportunities. The houses are getting bigger, there's a lot of tear downs and, you get these McMansions on these little poster. I just,
Postage.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And I know, again, my family are farmers, I know, I come from that, I know. Yeah, no, I'm with you. There's a reason why we had it. No, I'm done, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm against it too.
So we give
Dave
it
got
to-
his 2 cents in.
I'm against it too.
Do you want to vote, do you want to rescind your vote, your motion? And, with
Okay.
Negative?
I rescind my previous motion and I will make the motion that we do not approve.
Against approval.
We vote against approval of Article 17, which is the animal accessory to dwellings warrant article.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of voting against this article?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none. 7, nothing against Article 7. Against approval. 18.
Article 18, I would like to make a motion that we accept Article 18 as presented, the historic preservation.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I don't think there's really.
I wasn't here for what is this?
There is financial implication to this.
Is there really?
There's financial implication to everything.
Oh, because of the permits and
With this,
stuff?
it's the permits, it's also the increased popularity of using townhouses versus using other items.
Okay.
It's a subdivision of property that's provided and incentive provided for it. Basically, this discussion was, this article is explained by the planning board as an additional way for properties that are more appropriate for the location to be built, such as townhouses, rather than having these line apartments and stuff like that have multifamily dwelling units, because what this will allow you to do is, I might be mixing the next one.
You're mixing.
No, you're
that's
mixing,
my
no, this is the historic.
This one does.
Similar,
it's-
right,
it's
similar. So what this
So
one
what
says
this-
is older
it-
homes.
It's an incentive for the older home that you can, if you maintain the original older home, you can subdivide the lot and provide another building on the other lot that you wouldn't normally be able to have, with less restrictions that you don't have to get a variance for.
Or
on
you
that
can-
lot. Or you can, do certain things in conversion of that property that would help preserve the overall look of the property, that would allow you certain amenities and variances. That's things that would not require a variance that normally would, as long as the facade is maintained and the parking is placed behind the property, it's not placed in front of the property, and so forth.
And what he means by that is that you can increase it from a single family to
A multifamily.
multifamily.
Yeah.
As long as the facade stays the same and the parking is at the back. These are for homes that are 75 years of age or older.
1943 or before.
So you can take like an acre of land, you have a house on one,
This is for like historic
Historic houses.
houses.
they split in half, the acre.
You could do that.
Build another house on the other one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other
It's basically
option,
the incentive.
But you would not destroy the other house on
you
the
can't
property.
destroy the other house.
So I think this kind of relates to my neighbor who, had to come in and get a variance for that. They did that, they had one house, very large lot.
So without this, someone could still get a variance in order to do something,
But that was
yeah.
the process they did in,
But this, the idea behind this is
Is to
it's incentivize the preservation of the historical house, which is defined as 75 years or older, in order to kind of keep those properties and preserve those properties. It's a proactive step that they're not seeing in Lexington. Lexington was mentioned as one of those locations where all the properties being torn down, these bigger, as you said, McMansions in the
yeah.
previous article are being built, and they're not preserving their stock of more historical properties.
yeah, knowing the example of, my neighbor and how they did that to, and they did it on their own, right? And they
Mhm.
had to go through the variance and stuff like that. They did a wonderful job in keeping the neighborhood, like making everything fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So, seeing that as an example, I would vote in favor of this.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7-0. Article
19.
19.
I make a motion that we vote to approve Article 19 as presented, and it is the multifamily revision of definition of multifamily units.
Do we have a second?
Oh, I'll second.
Discussion? So this, yeah,
This
I
is what you
was
were
mixing,
talking
I was mixing a little bit of the, when I was talking about the previous article with this. Basically, yeah, you can have the townhouses, you can have more than one house on the property on a single lot, as opposed to having a row house, or an apartment type, building.
So this is to incentivize
Something other than apartment
apartments.
complexes.
Without having to seek a variance in order to do so.
Something that would fit with the charm of the,
Thank you, I'm motioning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Nays or abstentions? Hearing none, 7-0. Article 20.
Article 20, I make a motion that we accept Article 20 as presented, which is the warrant article about 278 and 280 Mill Road.
I'm gonna ask that we table this one until before town meeting, because this is the article which is being discussed.
Right.
The planning board.
And it had a public hearing next week.
Okay, I remove my previous motion.
Sorry, I didn't catch it
No,
before
that's
you
fine,
started.
I was just going down my
Yep.
list by number. And make a motion that we table discussion on this warrant article into our meeting prior to town meeting.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All's in favor? Or discussion?
Aye.
Oh.
No discussion. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 7-0. Article 21.
I make a motion that we accept Article 21 as presented, which is the plastic bag.
The retail use of use plastic checkout bags. Ban?
Yeah, no, it's a ban.
No, it's not a ban. The way it's styled is,
Reduction?
a plastic bag reduction in business establishments.
How is it not a ban?
I know, yeah, it's not.
It's a ban. The ban's is a naughty word. So it's a reduction in business establishments.
So wait a minute, how do we?
Well, more, it's less of a reduction and more of an elimination.
It's a reduction because they aren't requiring you to get rid of all plastic bags, just those under 0.4 mils.
Yeah. So does the building guy have to walk around with a little thing?
Wait, we don't have a motion yet, so,
Oh, I think I made a motion to accept it as presented.
okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, discussion.
So, was I here for this?
You were
No,
not,
you
you were
were
not
not.
here for this
Thank
one.
you.
So, on this one, you won't be able to get plastic, like reusable plastic bags with handles at the grocery store when you
But
check
those are
out.
those crappy little broken.
The crappy little broken
that I
bags,
have
yes.
to use 3
Right.
anyways.
Because now Lowell has a ban in effect that will go into effect next summer about the same time this one would if it passes.
Now, can
Westford
I buy,
has one as well.
like, no, so some Stop
You
and
can
Shop,
buy the
the
thicker
thicker
ones,
ones.
yes, and you can get paper.
oh, then, yeah, okay. 'Cause I
For
hate those
now.
stupid crappy ones anyways.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that for now. This
Yeah.
also doesn't preclude the use of plastic bags for dry cleaning newspapers, produce, meat, bulk foods, or other similar merchandise typically without handles.
Can I just say something, just because, I have a house up in Maine, and that town just went through it, and just banned it across the town, and really annoyed a lot of folks. Because people do reuse their little
We do, yeah.
Yeah, I reuse
plastic
mine.
bags, right?
Yeah, I
You know,
reuse mine for the dog.
Instead of, in fact, I tend to bring my plastic crappy bags from Chelmsford all the way up to Maine, so I can line my barrels up there, use it for, when I go to the beach and put trash in it, so, but I am using 3 at a time.
So you could still, you'd be able to go to a grocery store and purchase for use plastic bags that you would.
Thick ones.
that-
The
well,
thicker
thicker.
The
Well,
reusable
no,
ones.
it doesn't ban the plastic bags from being sold.
No.
It's a ban on them being used and distributed. So if, they could certainly package and sell these plastic bags. I
No,
don't,
but
I don't see
think
anything
when
banning that in here.
But what I think when I checked out in Maine,
I'm reading this article and I'm telling you, I'm not seeing
so
that.
they can't sell, like, for, I think it was 10 cents, I could purchase a bigger plastic, and it was a good quality bag.
So what this says, what the article says, is that customers are encouraged to bring their own reusable bags to stores. Business establishments are encouraged to provide reusable thick plastic, paper, fabric, or other types of bags. Reusable thick plastic, I'm guessing is basically like the fabric bag is only plastic.
Yeah.
And I really like those, and
Well,
For most trade
shows or any,
Yeah,
after
yeah.
ribbon cuttings, we go to most of the
You get a
vendors
a canvas bag or, yeah, cloth bag, yeah.
Their promotional
I, yeah.
Mhm.
logo on the outside.
Oh, we have a whole closet full of them.
I personally abhor the plastic bags. I can't stand them. I never get them. But besides my personal perspective, I'm going to vote in favor of this. Perhaps it's really only symbolically, but I'm all for, bringing my own bag to the grocery store, and because I think they do hinder the recycling. If they get into recycling, they hinder our machines, so on and so forth. And I think a limit of them would probably be good. So,
This does actually increase our tonnage fees and stuff for recycling, because if people are putting these plastic bags into
Right.
recycling and damaging the machines, it's gonna increase the cost that we're paying as a town for
right. So,
the use.
I'm gonna be supporting this, even if it is just a symbolic support.
Can I ask why it would be symbolic support?
Well, I mean, I don't know, I think that this could be a heavily discussed item because people care about it.
Love their
Yeah,
plastic
they don't want to
bags.
be inconvenienced. They see like
Well, I
a
think it's
change
like
like
the other
this
ones.
might be
It's a
inconvenient
change.
for them. But I see them, I don't use the plastic bags. I bring my reusable ones and I enjoy that. And I see them as a harm to our recycling system because they
Mhm.
bother our equipment. So I'm all in favor of reduction of use of plastic bags.
I could probably record this next comment for the next 3
I know,
articles.
right?
While I appreciate and respect the proponent of these, I'm voting no. I think this is the this plus the other 2 are the poster children of overreach, eye-roll inducing actions by government. I don't think-
Regulation for the sake of regulations.
Yes. So, again, not a personal attack on those that don't like plastic bags, but I don't think we have any business codifying this in town.
That's fair. That's a fair position. And in fact, I've gone back and forth on this multiple times. I don't like regulation for regulation's sake. I think over-regulation is ridiculous. I'm concerned that the inspector has to enforce this, the building inspector. It's an additional burden for that. I think of the three that are being proposed, and I know I'm speaking out of turn for the other two, this is the easiest one to implement because of the readily available alternatives as opposed to the other two.
Yes.
And it does not place an undue burden, I believe, on the, or an excessive undue burden on the establishments that are going to be affected, or on the government side, on the school system as well, which is a concern I have with the other two, which we can discuss in turn. I don't know. We don't really, I mean, we have them to use for single use, to basically for trash, quite frankly, now. And it pains me to vote for something that I think is going to end up happening anyway. The problem, and Eric, I agree with you on this, I hate regulation for regulation's sake. However, if I were to vote for any of them, this is the one I would certainly vote for most easily.
I think or I guess I don't think it's fair to say there's not an undue burden. I have no idea. I'm guessing a plastic bag costs less than a penny. How much does a paper bag cost? More than a penny? I don't know.
So what I was saying is, of the three, this provides the least of the burdens, I think, of all three. Not that this is not an undue burden, but this provides the least of the three.
It might not put as much of a burden on the establishments, but this one is the one that puts the most burden on the consumers. No, of the three. I'm not saying it puts a burden, I'm just saying, but of the three. I think this is the one where, as a consumer now, you have to go buy reusable bags.
So I'm gonna disagree with you only because there is gonna be, and we'll discuss this in turns, but there are gonna be costs that are gonna be passed upon the consumer for the other two.
Oh, no, I understand that, yeah. No, I'm not saying that there's not one, but I think this is the one.
Cost passed along to the consumer for this one too.
Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
food for
The
thought.
grocery stores are not going to not have bags.
Right.
Right.
already have
Buy more
paper bags.
So you just have to
Years
ask
and
for
years
more.
Right, now they're
ago,
gonna have to have more of them.
when,
Yes,
So
they
they're
are.
gonna pass the cost along to us.
I mean,
in some way, shape,
quite a
or
long time ago, they would give you 5 cents off your groceries for every bag you brought in. Do you remember what?
Yeah.
They still do that at Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Oh, they do at Whole Foods.
Whole
Well,
Foods in Westford, they give you 5 cents or whatever it is off a bag,
Yeah.
the
But-
bags you bring in.
so,
Use plastic bags.
Here's the thing, like, Europe, it has been doing this
That's why we go
for
to town
30
meeting.
years already. Like, you know, this is like the rest of the world already does this. This is kinda like, to
No,
me.
I'm not saying that we don't do, I'm not saying that it's not the right thing to do. I'm not saying that
But
as a people, we should make this decision, but I'm in agreement with Eric that I don't like regulation. I don't like government
agree.
overreach.
I agree with you, and I am, you know, as you know, not, you know, the most conscientious about recycling and stuff like that.
Ecological?
No.
Like, you know, if these were good quality plastic bags that I got, then I'd be fine with it. But I have to get, like, they all rip on me anyways.
That's because you got too much stuff in it.
well, no, because they
This'll
only put
force
one
you-
item in the plastic
So you'll
bag.
buy more now if you're using the heavier bags. If you use the crappy plastic ones, then you'll buy less.
But I end up going and buying a friggin' fabric one every time I go there and spend like $1.99
'Cause you
because I
forget them.
Oh.
That does happen. That does happen.
But
Anyway.
Anyways, I think this is, to me, it's the right time. Like, you know, this is not new. Every other town has,
Watch it. We are live.
yeah, has this, I think people are expecting it. I think there's I think regardless whether you put this in, companies are gonna go this way anyways. They did it. one
So
way or the other.
I'll make the same comment I made last week. If they're going to do it anyway,
Yeah.
why make a regulation for it? If this is the groundswell of get rid of plastic
Yeah.
bags,
Here's the
You've
thing
got a-
though,
you've got a
right,
point.
like China's no longer taking our trash. So we've gotta kind of get ahead of, you know, where we're gonna put this stuff. Cause it's gonna cost us money, so again, this is already the least amount of change, you know, why not put this regulation in and get ahead of our,
So I guess it comes down to an issue of timing, really. Because we're still discussing it. We're not gonna take a, I was about set to take a vote, you start talking again, so you have no position to speak about
Vicky has
that.
something to say. Jim?
It comes down to, sure.
ahead.
but
No, go
It comes down to, it really comes down to a position of timing. It's, how long do we wait for the businesses to do it themselves? And it's overregulation versus, institution and time. And it's a difficult balance. If we don't regulate, how long is it gonna take for for those people to do it on their own? And I guess that's the concern you have is what's one of the easier ones to implement, and if we don't do it now, how long is it gonna take for it to be done naturally? And your concern, Eric, is that it's going to be, an overregulation, but then the question becomes, how long does it take, again, for it to be done on its own?
And so my earlier question, Anita, was why did they choose to have the building inspector implement it? And is that something that they typically would do? And so what kind of paperwork burden, I'm thinking, is this person going to have to go through? And how long do we expect that it would take for people to change, right? So that they actually are implementing it right away. The fees aren't huge compared to the stocks of plastic bags they might have. I'm all for bringing my own bag. It's my preference. And so I understand why they've put this forward and why we would go forward, but is this, are there a lot of things like this that the building inspector does automatically? I'm just not really familiar with what he does.
or would this be something that like kinda, if you're there for something else and you happen to notice it, you would write them up on it? Like, you don't go out and.
Or just someone, or people calling and complaining?
Right, like, it's not something that you would go as like, oh, I gotta go check these 5 establishments, like, this is part of my
Right.
job. It's more of a, I don't
It's
know.
just
more of a
because you're
response to
there.
complaints.
Yeah.
I think it's answered in the language of the article. And under 4.1, it states the inspector of the buildings is, or of his designee, I think they meant to say, or his designee, is hereby designated and authorized as the officer charged with enforcement of this bylaw, and then it goes on to say, in a previous part of the article, that, I know I saw it there.
They needed to assign somebody.
No, hold on. Nothing can, so in 4.2, in the second part of the sentence, it states, third sentence, it states, nothing contained herein shall preclude the building inspector from seeking equitable relief to enforce this bylaw. So it leaves it in that
What does that mean?
building inspector's wheelhouse. They have the ability to make those decisions as to how they're going to enforce the bylaw. So it doesn't require,
Jim, what is seeks equitable relief?
equitable relief is equal relief, something equitable in the law. It's not necessarily going to be a monetary concern, it's going to be some sort of enforcement that's required. But it allows the discretion of the building inspector.
Common sense.
Yes, exactly.
So the penalty, in essence, will take care of his amount of time that he's putting into this?
Potentially.
That's what I
Or
see it
a
as, I
warning.
think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Just
not,
seems
he doesn't have to go out to every single building and automatically start all these brand new inspections to try to see whether or not people are using plastic bags. It's one of those enforcement scenes.
As he's there. Okay, that was just strange to me.
But there has to be some sort of agent. So the problem we've encountered in previous articles that have been like this, where there's a bylaw change or something like that, is there's no authority that's been put in place to actually enact
Right.
and enforce. And so that I'm guessing this is the language that was used in other articles that they pulled from, although there are a couple of spelling errors in here that need to be addressed. Yeah, that's what it is. It's
Okay.
I guess my philosophy is any curtailing of the use of plastic bags is probably going to be better for all of us in the long run. So even if this just becomes a public awareness issue, then good for us, but I'm also happy to endorse it because I think I think they bother our recycling and I think they're a pain in the backside, so I'm happy to vote this along, but in the long run, it's better for all of us if there isn't excess plastic.
Any further discussion?
I want to get to the straw one.
What'd you say?
Jeez.
I want to get to the straw one.
It's gonna be a
Oh,
fun-
God.
it's gonna be
I'm
fun.
just glad it's not the health inspector.
I know, right? He's already got two.
I
Poor
mean,
guy.
doesn't it align right with it? That's why I was wondering, how did they choose the building inspector who's, anyway, beside the fact.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
How many?
2.
3.
3.
Three.
Oh, 3, I'm sorry. You said
One,
one.
two,
Nays?
three.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry, didn't hear.
No.
4 to 3. Against? And again, for the same reason that Eric stated. It's regulation for regulation's sake.
Article 22, the make a motion that we accept Article 22 as presented, limitation of styrofoam materials.
Second?
Discussion?
So we just got you forwarded us the
This
information
goes-
from her?
Yeah, she,
The update, because she spoke with the school.
This costs
So-
us money,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
This is gonna be an annual, it was an annual cost increase in Westford.
Like
Of
38
grand.
31,000.
31,000?
31,700. But remember, they serve an estimated 500,000 meals annually. They have a lot less kids than we do, right?
Westford?
Yeah.
Their population is
pretty-
very close to
very
ours.
Yeah, so it's
Comparable?
close to
Okay.
ours, yeah.
Close.
Yeah.
It's
Alright.
probably 100 pupil difference. I don't know if
Okay.
more people eat lunch in Westford than they do
Yeah.
in Chelmsford.
But I mean, let's say it's
In
comparable, so
Chelmsford, we
it's
get
around, so
gruel,
that's
they probably get,
$30,000
prime rib.
that this is gonna potentially cost, $30,000 or more this is gonna cost the school.
But to have a teacher.
That's a para.
Yeah.
That's an aid for a kid who, I'm just putting it into,
Well, I mean, I guess we don't know, but I can't
We
imagine
know-
this
we know
will
what
be
Eric
passed
thinks.
along and
Yeah.
higher lunch fees. That's who's gonna pay for
Well,
it.
it's gonna, that's what's
Yeah.
going to happen.
Again,
That's
now
what
the
is
burden
happening
goes
in
to the
Westford.
consumer,
Right.
just as it does at the restaurants.
Yeah.
So on this article, different than the
The bags.
plastic bag, I think this will be, I think companies are already on top of this. Like Starbucks has a plan.
Well, they don't have any styrene left in
You know,
there.
Dunkin' Donuts is moving
already
toward it. Yeah.
Yeah.
This I think is a little premature from an,
I think the schools are gonna work towards it eventually, but I think we need to let them do it on their timeline.
yeah,
Um,
especially from the burden of
The schools? Well, I
Well, according to
completely
this,
agree
according to
that,
this email, we didn't have any response from Dr. Lang yet. He's still working on numbers and discussions.
yeah,
Speech again.
that's what I'm saying, so
Okay,
I would
I
rather
should
let them
cover
do it on
that
their
well for
timeline.
you.
I agree, just like with the plastic bags, I agree that
time
it's
for the
something that we
same
should
one.
do and make a decision as people to do, but, and I think the company should make the decisions to mesh with society. I just don't like the regulation. I
So,
really don't like it when we put a burden on our schools.
so in the interest of fairness, I'm going to read this into the record,
Yeah, good idea.
especially
is that email?
for open meeting. Yeah, I'm going to read it
Okay,
into the
yeah.
record. Dear Jim, I want to thank you, and this is coming from Cynthia Feekers, who presented last week. Dear Jim, I want to thank you and your fellow Finance Committee members for providing me the opportunity to present. I appreciate all of your thoughtful questions and comments as they prompted me to search for more specific information. Attached, I have some updated costs that I got from the Westford schools just this morning. These numbers were collected 2 years. However, they do provide a better assessment than the guesstimate she gave me earlier. According to this attachment that Colleen Wallace, the food service director from Westford, sent me this morning, you can see the following. First bullet, the total increase in annual cost to food services was $31,700. Second bullet, they serve an estimate of 500,000 meals annually. Third bullet, the school year is 180 days. Fourth bullet, this averages 6 cents per meal or $11.41 per year. I am meeting with Nancy Antolini, the Director of Food Services in Chelmsford, tomorrow, Friday. I received an email from Dr. Langs this week, as copied below, and I'm reading verbatim, so any, quote, "Thank you for meeting with me a few weeks back on this matter. I indicated I would work with our business office and food service staff to identify any issues related to, 1, availability of alternative products, and 2, cost of such implementation. Our staff exploring these matters at this time. I know this matter is timely with fall town meeting quickly approaching. As soon as I have information to share, I'll reach out, end quote. Again, please extend my appreciation to the Finance Committee. I look forward to gathering more information for the town meeting and welcome any additional thoughts or comments you or your committee may have. Sincerely, Cynthia. And attached to that was a table of the breakdown of the increased costs, which did not include a yet available number for replacement knives, forks, and spoons, although I'm not sure. Those aren't polystyrene, those are plastics.
Right.
So I'm not sure how those would factor in, other than a separate ban or a separate reduction. But it included 5-compartment trays, bowls, salad containers, hinged foam squat bowls, foam carry trays, oval platters, and squat bowls of 8-ounce and 12-ounce size. So there's a varying cost increase that totaled that $31,700. They basically went from polystyrene to and this is the thing that they chose, molded fiber or paper replacement products.
They're winning.
So that was emailed to us this afternoon.
I also think the timing of the styrofoam would be hard to implement for like the big establishments like Dunkin' Donuts and, I mean, I don't know, that it was gonna happen by July, and I think the timing is, you know.
I think the timing would be difficult for the schools, too.
I think the schools are my biggest concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I care too, I think the reduction of the use of styrofoam would be good for all of us.
I agree, and, you
Yeah.
know, certainly, we wanna bring it again next year, you know, I think it'll get there eventually, but even from like a business perspective, you know, we're trying to have companies come in, and sometimes companies will, you know, stock their break-ins and stuff like that, and forcing them to go with a higher cost product, you know, I just don't think we're there yet, like,
I think I'm gonna
I
the
think
same.
it's happening on its own. I don't understand
Yeah.
why we need to regulate it.
you know, sometimes it's driven
Why do we need to force the issue?
Yeah, I think.
I'm gonna echo what Eric said previously. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
I
you
have
did
the
say
same
this was for the
feeling.
next 3.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I have the same feeling.
Yeah.
It's regulation for regulation's sake. Things are happening naturally. I understand that people want things to happen quicker than they're happening, but there has to be a timeline that's realistic in these things. I don't think any of us are not in support of the position behind these articles. I think that the problem is we're not in support, those that are voting against and not in favor. We're not in support of the forced timeline and forced regulations that are being presented, because it's again, regulation for regulation's sake in some instances, and it's because that people don't believe that these actions are being taken. I think that they are being taken.
No, they are, yeah.
And they are being implemented. It's just not happening as fast as people want it to happen.
But, you know, corporate America doesn't move always as fast as everyone wants.
No,
So, you know.
But some do.
some do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll talk about it in the next article.
Take a look.
Yeah. Any further discussion?
Nope.
So, all those in favor, because the current motion on the table is support of Article 22. All those in favor?
Hi.
Take a tally, that's 1.
2, you had 2.
Oh, 2, I'm
You-
sorry.
You said aye, right?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
No,
oh.
so
this
1.
But I don't feel bad, I feel.
Any nays?
She's not by herself.
Oh.
Nay.
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 Any abstentions? So that's 6 to 1 against.
That's okay.
So it's okay. Again, it's not that.
Not someone needs to.
Right, I'm just.
I love the sentiments behind
I'm
it.
just delivering the message that I feel a reduction is better for all of us, so I'm
And that's
sticking
fine,
to
and
that.
I don't think that message is lost on any of us.
No, we agree with you. I just don't think
It's
it's
the
right
regulation, the
way to do
way, the way in which it's being implemented, I think,
Yes.
is the problem that's being discussed. Article 22.
23.
23, sorry.
23. Make a motion that we accept Article 23 as presented, the warrant article describing the use of straws.
I'll second.
Discussion.
Okay, so once again, back to regulation. But as I brought up while we were talking about it when she was here, my biggest concern with this one
Timeline.
is the timeline, and additionally is the fact that this is really going to affect fast food companies that we have in town, and the majority of our fast food companies are right off the highways. And so you have a lot of people that are coming here who are not from Chelmsford, who don't know that there is a straw ban, and who don't know they need to bring their own straws, and are gonna show up and get a cup until corporate of Burger King and Dunkin' Donuts and McDonald's catches on with Starbucks and makes all the tops like sippy cups.
Well, they're already exploring other
They
alternatives.
are, but, so
Yeah.
let's let them explore and let's, but my concern is that what's gonna happen is you're gonna have people showing up getting a top like you have, Jim, without a straw. And who's gonna hand that back to the 4-year-old kid in the back seat? Because it's gonna end up everywhere. And so what ends up happening is I think word's gonna get out, because we all know that everyone looks at Yelp and listens to Facebook. And people are gonna stop stopping in town. And if you don't stop in town to get McDonald's, are you gonna stop in town to get gas?
I'm less concerned about that. I'm more concerned about the fact that this is already being implemented again, and it's being implemented nationwide. 2020 is the deadline for Starbucks right now that they've self-imposed. They're going to switch to the alternatives already.
And McDonald's said they were gonna do it in the next 5 years.
They are searching other alternatives.
Yeah.
They may not do the same thing that Starbucks is
No.
doing, but they're looking at other options.
And I would have a feeling if the other fast food places are gonna follow in McDonald's footsteps.
Oh, yeah.
Just as Dunkin' Donuts will follow in Starbucks, because they have to.
They have to.
If the wording of this article changed just slightly, not to include any drive-throughs, I would vote for this in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Like,
definitely.
if you're inside.
In
even
a
if you're
restaurant, I don't
inside-
care about a
like
restaurant,
inside
yeah.
a McDonald's, they
Right.
don't give you a straw, but if you drive through, they give you a straw, then I would be all over this, cause I thought she brought up a great, and again, I never thought about it the way she presented it, but
Well,
Well,
but then
inside-
that unfairly attacks Starbucks the next year, because the Starbucks in town does not have a drive-through
But
that
again-
Dunkin' Donuts does, or the Dunkin'
Maybe it
Donuts
doesn't affect fast
plural.
food, well, how about it doesn't affect fast food?
Because fast food, at least the ones that I think of, they don't give you a straw. They have straws out. Take a straw if you want it. Don't take a straw.
Oh,
if
when you
don't
go
want it.
inside,
When you go inside.
right, yeah,
you're right,
yeah.
true, you're right.
So let the consumer make the decision.
Yeah.
I mean, like I had mentioned
But
when the
I would-
article came up, when the presenter was here, there are places, like in New York, you have to ask for the straw.
I think
They
that's the
don't
way
give
it
it
is
to you,
in-
they don't put it in the glass for you,
Yeah.
they don't even put it on the
Concord.
table. You have to say to the server, I would like a
But
straw.
I'm fine with that.
And then they have to go in the back and get one and bring it out to you.
Yeah, I think that's the way it is in Concord. I've had
Is it-
dinner
that's
in
the way it is in
Concord
Concord? Yeah.
this summer, and
That's the
Not
way it is in a
ask
lot
for
of
it.
places. In
so they
Newburyport-
just said, if you want a straw, you have to ask for it.
In
Yeah.
Newburyport, it's a voluntary self-imposed ban, and some places have the paper straws, some places
Yeah.
have the alternative straws. And some places still offer them, but don't
Automatically stick it in.
automatically offer them. And that's a coastal town that's doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
It's happening, it's changing.
Right.
Again, it's not going as fast as some people would like it to occur, but
These things have a natural progression, though. I mean,
Yeah,
our
I'm-
economy
This
drives
was
it,
like
too.
least, for me, this one is the least painful, with the exception of the drive-through, because that's how I get my Diet Coke, so.
But I'm saying, think about going through the drive-through with your kids when they were little.
I'm saying with the
Yeah.
exception, but I am all for saying, like, putting a bylaw like this, because I think it's the least painful. It says
but
for
we're
any
not,
sit-down
okay,
restaurants, you
and
don't.
that's fine, Anita, but we're not voting on that. We're voting on what's in front of us right now.
Perhaps they'll accept a
That's great, and
friendly
you could certainly
adjustment.
propose an amendment to the article. And I think the presenter was even discussing a potential adjusted timeline for implementation, which I would be fine with.
Well, it depends on what the adjusted timeline is. I mean, an
That's
extra
true
6
too.
months isn't gonna.
That's true too. So, I'm gonna echo again, Eric, we should have recorded and just replayed it every time. It's the regulation for regulation's sake, and it's imposing an additional burden that is requiring these businesses and people in general to follow these regulations. It's that you won't do it, so Big Brother's gonna make you do it, and I can't support that.
The only thing I'll reiterate for the third time is that I totally appreciate and understand why people bring this up.
Yeah.
I'm just not in support of putting it onto the books. This is one I actually was after last week I was describing this to somebody I work with, and he's like, "Oh, let's be by OS. Bring your own straw." Like, who would walk around with a straw? But that's
As you mentioned to me, you leave them all over the place when you
I
bring.
do.
bring-
So
bring-
I
try.
Yes, I tried, but you're not, so like you get up and you leave the table, and I can't tell you how many times I sent my kids back to the whatever restaurant or bar I
Wait,
was
you
at
go back?
on the cruise. Oh, no, I sent the kids back.
Okay.
No, they're old enough.
You sent the kids back to the bar.
Yeah, well, it's
Okay,
an
yeah.
outdoor bar on a cruise ship, you know.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Yeah. No, but I did, I kept losing them.
We're all
I lose cloth bags. Or I tear holes in the
We're
bottom.
punch tired now. or
Yeah,
whatever.
it's getting late.
Yeah, punch drunk.
No, but I do agree with the regulation thing. I think that
This I don't agree with I don't agree with the
No, she's saying he
regulation.
agrees it's regulated for
No, I
regulation's
agree
sake.
that the regulation argument, that it's regulation for regulation's sake, that it's happening, let's let it happen naturally. I know you don't care.
This one, I don't, that's
You just don't
not-
like the way it's written,
I don't like the way it's written.
because of the way it affects you.
No, I just don't,
Because you get your Diet Coke through the
So I'm
driveway.
gonna call the vote.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Good idea.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Can I, split it? Like, 2-5
No,
away?
no, you cannot. You can't do a half vote, I'm sorry.
like that. I almost voted with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm
by yourself.
perfectly comfortable being by myself with a vote.
That's fine.
I'm
That's
very
fine.
proud of you.
We always get criticized that we don't split our votes, so guess what? We split our votes.
It was a good vote on your part.
That's the final article. The 2024, there's no action because the street that was going to be accepted is not ready to be accepted. Again.
To adjourn?
No, before
not yet.
we do that, we need to take, so we need to, we remember that we have a meeting that we're gonna have the day of, the start of town meeting, which is October 15th. We need to, October 15th is the first night of town meeting, 7:30, but we will be there at like 6:30. No,
Second Monday,
at the
right?
beginning of October, we would already be overdue with our book. Timeline for the book.
What did you say, October 15th?
Apparently, I have to get my letter done this weekend.
Before town meeting.
So if there's anything you guys want to include, thank you. Anything you guys want to include in the book
We'll send an
itself, please send it to Pam and I, so that we can get it into the book. Any presentations, any articles that you feel that should be included as an appendix, please do so. I will do my level best to get the letter out as soon as possible so that people can review and add anything that they so choose. I will also confirm with either Paul or John or both or Mike the exact numbers to make sure we have everything accurate in the book. The book will be published no later than October 1st. So that's a printed, published book. It's posted on the website actually the 26th of September, which is next Wednesday? Next Wednesday?
Whenever we have the final one ready to go.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna say Friday. But I know it has to be before Friday. We've had this discussion.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Wednesday or Thursday. Okay, so Thursday. It'll be sent to the printer and published, but that's our timeline. We will meet for those two articles on the October 15th. We have to take a picture for the annual town report right now.
Oh my God.
But we will adjourn prior to that. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Oh, I apologize. No, you're right. We skipped over public comment.
Public comment?
No.
One minor thing.
I'd like to,
Hang on.
I would like to take, actually, I'm gonna have to take a motion to reopen the meeting.
I would,
Motion to reopen the
Second
meeting.
it.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, going back in order, public comment. If you are commenting, if you can come forward.
When you are going to meet before the town meeting, you should coordinate with Paul because we have to meet before the town meeting as well to vote on that thing that's still up in the air. So somebody has to go first,
Yep.
second, so work with Paul, will come up with a plan, that's all.
Okay, so you don't think you'll have resolution prior to town meeting? On the, we have two articles that we're gonna be,
Thinking it's gonna be like right at the end,
on the zoning article?
yeah, on that one hour.
Okay, so we're both got the same thing, but we're looking for the information on the Article 5 as well.
Either we'll come to you first and then we'll go, or vice versa.
Okay, all right, we'll coordinate on that, that's fine, thank you. All right, any press questions? Hearing none. Any further public comment? None, all right.
How many's the 15th and the 18th?
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn again.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Second it.
All's in favor?
I think you had
See you the
5 seconds.
15th. We'll be in
Thank-
touch.
Thank you for staying for the whole meeting. That was very.